Please take your seats and quiet down. Thank you for joining us. Let me know when the recording started. Is the recording on, Marissa? It is. Oh, great. Okay, thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Brad Sherburne, the chair of Manhattan Community Board 5. Welcome to our full board meeting. We will begin tonight with our public hearing, so I will hand it over to our first vice chair, Yaron Noti Victor.
Good evening. This is the public hearing of Manhattan Community Board 5. I'm Yaron Noti Victor, and I'll be your chair. During this hearing, members of the public are invited to speak for 2 minutes on the subject set forth in the agenda or on any topic that relates to the affairs of the community district. If you would like to address the board before it votes on any matters tonight, now is your opportunity to do so. Although there will be a public session during the full board meeting later, that public session will be at the end of the meeting after all the votes have taken place. So if you want to address the board on any matter before it votes tonight, now is your time to do so. If you'd like to speak during this public hearing and you are in person, please fill out a speaker form. If you are joining us online, please use the raise hand feature now if you want to speak. When you are recognized, you will be able to unmute yourself. So we will begin the public hearing in the room here with Deborah Sinodinos, and I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. Let me just make sure there's a mic up here. Hello? Is it on? Hello?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah. I am with Municipal Credit Union. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with MCU. We are a credit union who is coming to the area. We are growing, and we are adding 2 branches this year, one in Far Rockaway and one here in Chelsea. We will be located at 275 7th Avenue. So look for us probably. It was originally supposed to be around this time of the year, but now it's pushed back a little bit. So probably be in the 3rd quarter of this year. You will see us open for business. I have some flyers there at the table. I just want, please take them. If you have any questions, my information's on there. Contact me, talk to me about MCU. Let me know how we could connect with some of the businesses here. We do a lot of connecting with employees and just letting them know that there are other options besides commercial banking. And credit unions are a great option for people without worrying about fees and better interest rates. So please take a flyer before you leave today, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Suzanne Johnson.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. My name is Suzanne Johnson. I am speaking actually with regards to the 87 7th Avenue application for Extel. I want to just go ahead and say that I'm a West 50s neighborhood member. I'm a resident, and I'm a public member of Community Board 5 Landmarks. Oh, that's better. Yeah. And now a little song. Now, I want to respond directly to Extel's claims and explain why I feel this application must be denied. First, Extel's architect said that their super tall relates to the surrounding buildings through its podium design, and this needs to be questioned. Directly north of 871 7th Avenue is the Osborne. It has 14 stories. The Rodin Studios, it has 15 stories, and Carnegie Hall. Carnegie Hall has just 8 stories. Landmark buildings define an architecturally significant corridor characterized by historic human-scale residential buildings that create the height and proportional massing on 7th Avenue. Their 71-plus story tower does not relate to this context. In fact, it overwhelms it. It is categorically incompatible with this neighborhood. Second point, Extel claims there is no significant environmental harm when comparing 53 stories to 71 stories. Super talls like theirs are among the most carbon intense buildings constructed. Embodied carbon rises sharply once buildings exceed 40 to 50 stories. That's significant. And this drives greenhouse gas pollution, which is the most dangerous form of environmental harm that we face. This light waiver, it would permanently obstruct light and air in this public realm. These standards are mandatory because sunlight is fundamental to public health and the livability of our streets.
Please
This
wrap your
is environmentally harmful. One sec. Third, there. Well, I just want to say that I find this denial is only just indefensible, and the outcome is problematic. A 53-story building is already permitted as right, and we really ask, please, to deny this application. Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask members, I am chairing this public hearing. Do not speak out to the people speaking, please. We'll have Dave Akalis now, please.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Dave Akalis. I used to work on the community board here. I think some of you know me. I'm president of the West 50s Neighborhood Association, but I'm here today as a private citizen and a resident of West 56th Street for over 50 years. Let me start out by saying that for the last 20, 30 years, the New York real estate industry has been out of control. It is time the citizens of New York City take back what no one industry should control. The real estate industry has made so much money that they have been able to buy whatever they want, and no one has been able to say no. That's what makes Extel such a bad neighbor. The voters of the city need a referendum to amend the real estate zoning laws that were last updated in 1963. Back then, the technology did not exist to build these super tall buildings, and that's the reason we need to renew these zoning laws. An example of Extel's arrogance: for the last 100 years, developers and architects have understood the sightline of Central Park West was to be preserved. It was sacrosanct. And up until about 2 years ago, that prevailed. Then Extel says, too bad, no one can stop us. And they erected the eyesore that is 50 West 66th Street. Those are photos number 1 or 2. The eyesores that loom over Central Park. One of these apartments has been on the market for 875 days at $85 million. And you know what? Extel was proud of the fact they didn't have to provide any affordable housing because the building is as of right. What a terrible phrase. Previously, Extel abused the air rights provision by cantilevering 1/4 of the building at 217 West 57th Street in the actual airspace of the Art Students League. That's picture number 3. Greedily grabbing every inch of air and light they could get their hands onto. At the start of the 20th century, development in New York City had to follow zoning that provided ample light, air for the surrounding community. Now that evidently belongs to Extel.
Please wrap
and they
up
can
your
go as high as they want. Please say no to Extel. Let's stop this out of control real estate right now. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Jacob Van Winkle.
Hi, my name is Jacob Van Winkle. I'm the treasurer of the West 50s Neighborhood Association. We're asking the board to vote no. No on the floor area bonus and no on the daylight waiver. And here's why the daylight waiver should stop you. The zoning code requires a score of 66% of daylight on each street. And Extel's own filings, their drawing, their consultant scores this building at 18% on 7th Avenue and the other streets. That is less than 1/3 of the legal minimum on the avenue near Carnegie Hall. They're asking the City Planning Commission to waive the standard because they cannot meet the standard. And this is the first time CB5 has been asked to weigh in on a daylight waiver under section 66521. One other project in the city wants the same thing, the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy building. So you've got two luxury companies coming to you asking for a daylight waiver. This one is the first. Whatever you do tonight becomes the template for luxury workarounds. A building that scores 18% where the law requires 60%, 66%, isn't asking for a modification. It's asking for the standard to not exist. Vote no and send this message to the City Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go online now to Kim Tabbitt.
Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Flatiron 20th and 21st Street Block Association, I'd like to comment on the resolution regarding Taj's application to add DJ and live music to its method of operations. While we are disappointed by the addition of DJ and live music, we very much appreciate the committee's efforts to reduce the proposed hours of operation and its continued attention to neighborhood quality of life concerns. I do want to comment on the process surrounding this application. Originally, this item was scheduled for March 17th SLAP meeting. However, it was only at that meeting, while members of the public were already present, that we were informed that it would be postponed to April 21st. Then on April 20th, one day before the rescheduled meeting, CB5 sent the Block Association an email saying that the item had been removed from the agenda because the application had reportedly been denied by the SLA. It appears that only the Block Association received this information because the operator was in attendance, public comment was taken, and the committee proceeded to discuss terms and vote on a tentative affidavit. We understand the committee's explanation to be that subsequent confirmation with the SLA indicated that the application was in fact active and therefore still in need of consideration. While we're of course willing to give the benefit of the doubt that this was an unintentional error, once CB5 became aware that the item would in fact be heard, we should have been clearly notified. Proceeding with the discussion and vote without updated public notice undermines the integrity of the process and falls short of basic principles of transparency and public participation, including those embodied in New York State open meetings laws. We do really, truly appreciate the work of CB5 and the steps that the SLAP committee is taking to safeguard the quality of life of its constituents. However, maintaining trust and effective collaboration with the community requires strict adherence to these fundamental procedural standards. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Jackie Connor. Jackie, are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm here. My name is Jackie Connor. I'm the Deputy Executive Director from Main Chance Drop-In Center, operated by Grand Central Neighborhood Social Service Corporation, who have been serving the Midtown homeless and food insecure population for over 30 years. We provide critical daily services, including nutritious meal, clothes and distribution, nighttime respite, case management, housing support, and community referral for vulnerable New Yorker in need. In addition to that, Main Chance also operate a monthly food pantry that serves an average of 108 individual and family each month. Grand Central Neighborhood Social Service Corporation was recently notified that DHS will not renew our contract, which is scheduled to end on June the 30th of this year. The closure of Main Chance will leave thousands of vulnerable New Yorkers without access to meal, nighttime respite, case management, housing support, and other critical services in the Midtown area. Main Chance have served a vital community resource for individuals experiencing homelessness and food insecurity, and the loss of these services will have a significant impact on both the people we serve and the surrounding community. We are seeking Community Board 5 support and advocating for the continuation of Main Chance services and raising awareness about the impact that closure will have on Midtown Manhattan homeless and insecure population. With CB5 support, we hope to help preserve critical services, encourage reconsideration of DHS decision, and ensure vulnerable New Yorkers continue to have access to meal, respite, housing support, and community resources. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Carissa Kelly.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carissa Kelly. I am the founder of the Rethread Project. I wanted to thank you all very much for considering our application for support that we've gone in front of the Land Use Committee for. And we are seeking affordable space and to foster and create sustainable practices with a building inside the Garment District. Once again, I thank you for your time and your consideration for our proposal for seed funding with the City Council. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next is Charles Nye.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hopefully. Hi, I'm speaking about the Extel project for the new construction of the Wellington Hotel. My concern is this. The developer wants to improve accessibility in a subway station, having handicapped accessible elevators. This is already a legal obligation that the MTA is actually currently in progress with across their system, and they are legally required through legislation, not legislation, through legal cases, that the disability community have won for them to make subways accessible. So basically, I think that accessibility shouldn't be used as a bargaining chip for a building that's going to have no affordable housing. What's happening here is a very dangerous precedent that accessibility it's not about accessibility or nothing. And the precedents that the message, if you guys approve this, is that basically accessibility can substitute affordable housing, and that's not where we want to go. Disabled New Yorkers, seniors, every New Yorkers, even working class, everyone deserves affordable housing. This developer doesn't have one single of their 10 tower buildings having affordable housing. And it really upsets me as a disabled New Yorker that they are using accessibility handicapped elevators as leverage to basically say, this is the reason why we can't do affordable housing, and having their bigger and more dense buildings. So please don't vote on this. This is really, really bad, and I think it's really unfortunate that this developer is using the disability community as this bargaining chip, to basically skirt around having any affordable housing. I'm also very concerned that in the Land Use Committee meeting, I asked the developer if they have any links with the lobbyist group Open New York, and they did not confirm or deny the question. We need affordable housing. We're in a crisis. And, please believe me, it is a crisis. There's people like me on SSI that are suffering out there. There's people in the shelters in our district. So again, I just want to repeat one more time. Please don't let this developer guilt trip you into thinking that somehow if the building's not created, there'll be no handicapped accessible elevator in that subway station, because that's not true. The MTA is obligated, they're legally required to they're mandated, in fact, to make the subway stations accessible, so it would not make any a negative impact. So thank you for letting me speak today, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, I'm going to turn it back over to Brad.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will now call to order the full board meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5. I am Brad Sherburne, the chair. We will start our full board meeting by hearing from the elected officials that are in attendance and wish to address the board. The elected officials will be followed by any representatives of other electeds who may report to the board for 2 minutes each. The board then enters into its business session, which tonight consists of approval of the minutes, district manager's report, chair's report, committee reports, and resolutions, with a question and comment period, which we will then follow with new business. Lastly, we will then conduct a public session for those who would like to address the board on any item that was not covered during the meeting and that they did not speak to the board about during the public hearing, followed by adjournment. I will ask all speakers to speak slowly and clearly. I will start this evening's meeting calling on elected officials, and I believe there are none in attendance. Great. Okay. So we will now go to representatives of elected, not great, you know what I mean? Elected representatives, electeds, please raise your hands. And I'll start in the room with Julie Rowland from Assemblymember Boris's office.
Yeah. No electeds. Okay. Let's party. Honestly, I did feel like the vibe was different here, but then I thought Libby's not here. That's why it's mellow. Hi, Libby. We miss you. All right. Okay, first things first, a legislative update. A6578 just passed the assembly. This is an Assemblymember Boris bill. It's now going to require the biggest AI companies to report whether their models are trained on copyright material and personal data. You'd think this would be a given. It wasn't. Now it's being required, or at least it's passed the assembly. And by requiring them to publish where their data comes from, hopefully this will help us hold these companies more accountable. On to district events. People love these shred events. The last one we had, they were showing up in taxis with multiple suitcases. But I didn't see any of you guys there. So we're giving you not one, but 2 opportunities next month. In June, we have 2 shred truck events, June 6th and June 18th. Tell your friends, they're gonna find out about it anyway. They're gonna come with suitcases, but hope you guys join us. That's the 6th and the 18th. So that's the first Saturday, but also we have a weekday one. And it's going to be just at our office. So that's 40th and Lex, 353 Lexington, but 40th and Lex, come by and shred your stuff. And then also we are continuing to offer free legal services every single month. Please call to make an appointment, or tell folks to call and make an appointment with NILAG. So the next one is incidentally next week, but call anytime and schedule the next slot available. That's all I got. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we will go to Brees Pear from Councilmember Maloney's office.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Maloney,
please.
Right. Microphone. Councilmember Maloney is so fond of Community Board 5, she has moved her office into your jurisdiction. So we're now in the Gray Bar building, 420 Lexington Avenue between 43rd and 44th in Suite 650 on the 6th floor. Phone number is still 212-818-0580. She will be back in Community Board 5 on Saturday, I should say, for Park Avenue Day, sponsored by the Murray Hill Neighborhood Association. Our office should be tabling out there. In addition, she did a small business tour along Lexington Avenue in the 30s with, among others, Melissa Stewart of Community Board 5 City Services and Quality of Life Committee, and Community Board 5 staff member Josh Hughes, along with Kenny Manaya, who is the commissioner of the New York City Department of Small Business Services. They visited small businesses between about 38th and 41st Street along Lexington Avenue, talked with some of the owners, and we have in our office helped do some cleanup around that area, particularly on 39th Street. She's introduced a number of bills. I won't go into every jot and tittle. One of them is directly related to Midtown. It would ban pedicabs from picking up and dropping off passengers within 50 feet of theater entrances. That is actually legislation she's inherited from former council member Eric Botcher, who I believe in turn inherited it from former council member Keith Powers. So it's been kicking around a while, but that is intro 64. She has made a number of rounds with police precincts and so on. And I think I will just cut it there, except to say that we are very concerned in our office about the closure of the Main Chance homeless drop-in facility at 120 East 32nd Street. We've been contacted by a number of major players in the Midtown business community, including Grand Central Partnership and some others. With the closure of the Bellevue Men's Intake facility on 30th Street, this is hardly the time to close a homeless drop-in center on 32nd Street that has been in business for 30 years.
Thank you, Bruce.
We're very, very concerned about it. The city's reasoning for wanting to close it down is somewhat murky. Apparently, they made a serious run at it 2 years ago.
Please wrap up.
I did notice it's next to the Hotel Marmara, which is Turkish owned and operated. That may be a complete coincidence, but we hope to work with other elected officials like Harvey Epstein
Please wrap up
and
your
others
comments.
to try to keep that facilities contract renewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Jen Cruz from Councilmember Epstein's office.
Hi, guys. My name is Jen Cruz. I'm the budget director for Councilmember Harvey Epstein. I'm covering for my colleague Julia, who typically is here doing these updates. So very nice to meet you and great to see. Thank you for all of the work that you do. It matters so much. Okay, so events. Not to be outdone by shredding. The dance parade is on Saturday. So for those who, it's the biggest dance parade, I think, in the entire country. So fantastic. Please come May 16th. Africa Day event, May 20th. And then AAHNIP event on May 21st, and that's in Union Square. So these are all in the community district. Please come. There's a Juneteenth Jubilee on June 18th. In terms of things that we've been up to and celebrating, the Girls Club on the Lower East Side just had their 30-year anniversary, which is tremendous. Councilmember Epstein loves to go out and talk to the high schools about civic engagement. So if there are high schools that you hear where he can come and be valuable, it matters. And we saw some of that in action when Alan Moreo was returned after being detained in ICE. So that was a huge celebration and a huge win for him, for the family, for the cities, and for activism in general. Harvey also was celebrating 50 years of the Jewish Community Relations Council. So big birthdays, big things to celebrate, and big activities taking place. For those animal lovers, the ASPCA awarded Julie Menon and Councilmember Epstein. The Animal Rights Caucus is up and running. So as you have pet needs, wants, desires, please make sure you reach out and communicate those through. In terms of legislation, he introduced Intro 813, which allows the DCWP to take away tobacco licenses from smoke shops selling marijuana illegally. This is huge, right? There's so many smoke shops popping up that are illegal. We want the illegal ones here. Get rid of the illegal ones. Here's the way to do it. Make sure that you make your voices heard on outdoor dining while there is still time. Thanks again for letting me speak today.
Thank you. Okay, next we will go to Mackie Bentley from Representative Nadler's office.
Good evening, everyone. So a few updates from the Congressman. Recently, Congressman Nadler introduced a new bill, the Prohibiting Repressive Officials from Titular Engravings, Commemorations, and Tributes, or the PROTECT Act, which is to ban every federal building from being named after America's most corrupt, least democratic president, Donald J. Trump. America deserves public spaces that they can respect, and Congressman Nadler will continue to fight to ensure federal property is not a monument to tyranny and corruption. In other news, Congressman Nadler, along with colleagues from the New York, New Jersey, introduced the Helicopter Safety and Parity Act ahead of the one-year anniversary of the devastating 2025 Hudson River helicopter crash that took place over the Hudson River. The bipartisan bill put forth a simple notion that helicopters should be held to the same safety standards as airplanes. Such a notion is common sense, and it's time for laws and regulations to catch up. And then last but not least, after years of advocacy, Congressman Nadler and the Jewish families whose artworks were looted by the Nazis passed and signed into law the Holocaust Expropriated Art Recovery, or the HERE Act. This bipartisan legislation will help Holocaust survivors and their families reclaim artwork stolen by the Nazis by removing the upcoming 2026 expiration date from the original law and make key updates to ensure that the survivors' claims are heard fairly in court. With that, I'll give back the rest of my time. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. All right, I think that is it for in person, so I will go online. Oh, Ben, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, just want to give some quick updates from Albany. The budget is still delayed, approaching our 7th week with that. Some of the issues currently holding it up, being debated between the governor and leaders at the legislatures. The CLCPA, the governor has proposed rolling that back. Assemblymember Simone is very opposed to that. The CLCPA sets goals for New York State's climate emissions. If we can't reach those goals, what we should be doing is trying harder to reach them, not lowering our standards. It seems that a deal might be made on immigration. Governor Hochul supports policies to ban law enforcement from wearing masks. That includes ICE. And this is also a bill that Assemblymember Simone introduced. So we're very happy to see that supported. And New York for All, it seems that the policies from that, which would cut off state and local governments from working with ICE or other federal law enforcement, it seems that policy will be passed in the budget as well. Aside from that, Assemblymember Simone is pushing his Freedom to Read Act, which would ban school districts from being able to ban books. And just some personal news, wanted to let everybody know I'm going to be switching offices. I'm going to be working for Carl Wilson soon. Someone else will be taking over here. You all be notified of that. I won't be going too far on that. So thank you very much.
Okay, now I think we can go online. I don't see any hands raised, but I'm going to take a guess and say Kat Veloso from Senator Gonzalez's office. I think I saw it earlier.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kat Veloso, Director of Communications for State Senator Kristen Gonzalez. A couple updates from the Senator. This week was her third annual New York AI Week in Albany. She advocated for the passage of important legislation that would regulate the AI industry and protect some of its protect New Yorkers from some of its highest use risk cases. So a couple of the priority bills that she was pushing for this week includes S9051, which is a ban on unsafe AI chatbot features being offered to minors. S8484, which bans the use of AI tools in mental health care. S7263, which bans chatbots from impersonating a licensed professional like doctors and lawyers. There was also a rally up in Albany with Food and Water Watch with Senator Kruger's office on the 3-year data center moratorium. And then she released her New York AI Act report. Senator Gonzalez, as chair of the Committee on Elections, issued a statement in response to the Supreme Court's ruling on Louisiana versus Calais, which gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Her full statement will be included in the board report that I'll drop in the chat. Our office will be tabling at a couple of Manhattan events this Saturday. We'll be at the Stuytown Flea Market and the Park Avenue Day with the Murray Hill Neighborhood Association. So if you have any further questions or would like to connect with our office, feel free to meet us at our table. Last update from us, we have brand new Manhattan mobile office hours starting in June. We'll be hosting them at the Epiphany Library from 3 to 5 p.m. on the third Tuesday of every month, beginning on June 16th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Mariel Ali from the Borough President's Office.
Hi, good evening, everyone at CB5. Good to see you. My name is Mariel Ali, and I am the Director of Community Affairs for the Borough President's Office. I'm stepping in for Braha this evening. A few quick updates for you all. First, thank you to everyone that has participated in our community board interviews. You will be hearing from us very, very soon with appointment letters. So please stay tuned for that. I do want to flag a couple of events that we are hosting this month. First is the Eid al-Adha celebration with Muslim Volunteers for New York on May 26th at 5:30. We'll be sure to get those flyers over to Marisa. We are also hosting a Jewish Heritage Month celebration on May 28th, and that'll be at 1 Center Street, and that's at 5:30 p.m. as well. Also, please stay tuned. We have an exciting exhibit planned for our office's gallery with the Museum of Chinese America. So please stay tuned for that. Now, one thing we do want to flag is that the Borough President's Office is currently offering discretionary grants of up to $20,000 for nonprofit organizations doing public serving work in Manhattan. These are reimbursement based and must be spent before the end of the fiscal year in June. If you're interested, applications are now open at bpbhs.com/flash. And we're happy to follow up with any questions. Again, I will also be sure to share this information with Marisa. And last but not least, we do just want to talk about the New York Shield Law. The Trump administration has no right to access the private medical records of New York families, and their effort to intimidate NYU Langone will fail. New York Shield Law, which the borough president helped sponsor, prohibits New York law enforcement and courts from enforcing subpoenas or warrants related to legal gender-affirming care in New York. Manhattan will and must remain a safe haven for trans youth. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you, Mariel. Okay, and then I believe last is Nate Browse from Senator Kruger's office.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nate. I'm filling in for Alex tonight. So I just want to start by mentioning that I'm sure many of you have heard Senator Kruger did have a mild stroke about a month ago, which was very scary for all of us, obviously. She's recovering extremely well, and she was back to her normal self in a matter of days, but she remains on medical leave for precautionary reasons. She would, without a doubt, if it was up to her, already be back in Albany, helping to finish up the budget and probably moving it a little quicker. And speaking of that budget, her colleagues have obviously continued to work on that, and it's inching towards its final form, as Ben mentioned. It's not there yet, and there was a budget extender that was passed today through May 18th. Governor Hochul last week claimed that a deal had been reached. Unfortunately, that's not yet the case. But a lot of this has to do with the governor trying to use the budget for extremely non-budgetary causes, including the aforementioned CLCPA, which is something that our office and Senator Kruger continue to push back as hard as possible against. Those rollbacks, we understand the importance of protecting the CLCPA and doing everything we can to meet our climate goals as a state. And going along with that environmental note, I just wanted to quickly flag that the SUNY Act, which is a bill sponsored by Senator Kruger, S8512B, was passed unanimously in the Senate last month. Not many things pass unanimously, but this is a very popular bill. It legalizes plug-in balcony solar in New York State, which will allow New Yorkers everywhere, including in the city, to save money with small but powerful solar panels. And then last thing, just quickly, we are having a NILAG free legal clinic on Tuesday, June 30th. So please call our office if you or someone you know would like to sign up for a 45-minute free legal consultation with NILAG. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, I believe that is all the elected representatives. So we will now enter into the business session of the board, where, as I mentioned, only board members are allowed to speak. Board members attending virtually, please remember to have your videos on during the meeting. So we're now entering the business session, starting with a vote to accept the prior meeting minutes. May I have a motion? And a second? Thank you. Okay. As a reminder to all members, we are conducting voting using the Google form sent to you by Milan. If you are in person and having issues or need assistance, the board office is available to assist. For members attending virtually, please let us know in the Zoom chat if you're having issues. We will now move into the district manager's report. You are up, Marisa.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Marisa Mock, District Manager for Community Board 5. Parade and street fair season has begun. CB5 is the epicenter for much of that activity. So notices will get posted on our website under the resources page with the upcoming parade routes, street closures, all that information. This is officially the last meeting for members that did not reapply this term. So whether you were here 10 years or 1 year, you took the time to serve your community, and for that, we thank you. For some of you that were here for many years, BJ, Zona, Tristan, I want to say a special thank you. You saw the board through significant transition and helped bring it to a better place. I especially want to recognize Tristan Haas for stepping up during that period. There was a time. Well deserved. There was a time, not too long ago, when full participation and the freedom to speak up was not always welcome here. But the staff could always count on Tristan to be the one to raise his hand and ask a question and make a significant comment. Not that he ever won the day back then, but he persevered, took the long view, and hung in there after so many left frustrated, as did BJ and Zona. Thank you. Tristan understood the need for basic structural change, that very unsexy part of governing that few pay attention to, but is the backbone to a fully functioning democratic institution, and he hung in there until he could see that through. He oversaw the reform of our bylaws, which has been the central piece to the structural change this board so badly needed. So thank you, Tristan, for taking that long view and being such a critical piece of this board's history. The staff wishes everybody who's leaving us the very best going forward. And for those of you, including those that are leaving, that find yourself with some copious free time coming up, the New York Red Cross is actively recruiting engaged community members to join their team as community relations ambassador volunteers. There's printed material on the back table for anyone that may be interested. They have asked the board for recommendations, and so if you're interested, please let me know and I will forward your name along. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa. We will now move into the chair's report. First, I want to congratulate Carl Wilson, our new council member, for his election to City Council District 3. Carl has been a strong partner for this board in his prior role, and we look forward to continuing to work with him closely in his new one. We wish him all the best. Next, I want to thank many of you who took the time to fill out our member survey. The response rate was great. We are very pleased, so thank you. And we appreciate the thoughtfulness and candor that so many of you brought to your answers. We are currently reviewing this with the executive committee, and we'll follow up in upcoming meetings with some next steps. I also want to give everyone a heads up that committee reassignments are coming up soon. As our experienced members know, this happens on an annual basis. I will be reaching out to all of you to gather your preferences, and I'll do my best to accommodate them, though I may not be able to place everyone exactly where they'd like to be. So please keep an eye out for that email in the coming weeks. As Marielle indicated to us, new members will be appointed shortly. I think by the end of May is the current target, and they'll be joining our board in the next cycle, hopefully by our next full board meeting. So we look forward to welcoming them, and you'll hear more about that as soon as we do. And then finally, like Marisa, I want to take a moment to thank all the members whose time on the board is coming to an end this cycle. Tristan Haas, Zona Shu, BJ Sung, Annie Rowland, Robert Pagan, and Gabby Rivera. Their dedication, their expertise, and the countless hours that they've collectively spent on this board and contributed to our community have made a real and lasting difference, and we are very grateful for all the time they've contributed, and we will miss having them at this table. So that concludes the chair's report. Thank you, everyone, and we will move to committee reports and resolutions, starting with land use, housing, and zoning. So Julie, you are up.
Hey, land use had 3 resos, and I like to deem them red.
So deemed.
Okay, so the first application, 871 7th Avenue. The developer, Excel, is seeking zoning authorizations to build a 71-story, 1,100-foot tower at the former Wellington Hotel site at 7th Avenue and 56. The building would be 700,000 square feet with hotel, retail, and 197 residential units. The extra height, 18 additional stories and about 120 gross square feet, is unlocked by a transit improvement bonus that awards 20% additional development rights for accessibility upgrades at the 50th Street Broadway subway station. The committee heard a lot from neighbors and the public who showed up both in person and online at committee hearing, including 2 of our own board members, and the committee voted 9-1 in favor of the conditional denial. So just to acknowledge the positives of this project, the subway improvements are very valuable. We have ADA accessible elevators, new stairwells, fair area upgrades and the developer will be funding ongoing MTA maintenance stipend. And this bonus comes from a city program called Zoning for Accessibility. And it doesn't include any requirements for affordable housing. So there was comments about why no affordable housing is included, but it is not required with the zoning incentive. So we voted for a conditional approval, which includes, conditional denial, thank you. There was 10 bullet points included in our reso. One of them is pedestrian safety along 55th Street. So along 55th, there's 3 curb cuts proposed in close proximity, loading dock, circular hotel driveway, service entrance. So we thought there was a dangerous concentration of vehicle and pedestrian. And one of the conditions is to request reduction and consolidation of curb cuts to the maximum extent feasible. And then also asking that hotel loading must stay on site only, no curbside loading spillover onto 55th. And then CB5 heard directly from nearby residents with serious concerns about this massive construction project in a dense residential commercial neighborhood. So you'll see that list that includes 24/7 community representative with real decision-making authority, same-day response, no night or weekend work, etc. And then just asking Extel for ongoing community engagement. So as a community board, we want to use our voice to support the quality of life for our community with this large development, and that's why the committee voted for a conditional denial.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any conflicts? Any questions? Zul, grab a microphone, please. Kevin, right in front of you, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
The reso was introduced as a conditional approval and then voted on 9-1 as a conditional denial. I'd like to make a motion at this time for an unconditional denial.
Okay, so we are in questions right now. We'll have an opportunity to make these amendments later on. And just to be clear for everyone, the resolution that's on the table is a denial with conditions. So staying with questions to the resolution as is. Tom.
Thank you. I was going to ask for the mic. That was what I was. I would like to ask why someone would want to do an unconditional denial. The people that are on the meeting, because I'm just kind of curious why people are bringing that up now.
That's not a question to the resolution. So if we have that discussion about changing this to
Oh, okay.
you can have that. We can talk about it then, but right now I just would like to have questions to the resolution in the packages.
So my question then would be, what were the reasons that, I was on the board meeting. What were the reasons in the board meeting that people felt towards denial? What were the strong reasons towards it?
I think, as you heard from the public today, the same comments. It's a large development come into their neighborhood, quality of life issues.
May I rephrase?
Please.
There were conditions. There's some people. Were there people at the meeting that were saying, I don't want conditions, I just want a denial? And what were the things they were bringing up as part of, I'm trying to understand the difference now from what I just heard from what happened in the meeting. Like,
there was a consensus around with denial. I'm just saying, during the meeting, were there people that said unconditional denial, and what were their reasons for that? I know that's not, I'm trying.
So
I mean, board members are here. I don't want to, I could speak for them or they can speak for themselves, but there was comments about how there's no affordable housing. I tried to address that affordable housing is not required for this zoning bonus. There was, again, the quality of life for the residents. I know the board member came to represent his neighbors, and that we heard that, we thought it was important, and that's why we voted to deny unless. I think there was also conversations about just approve with conditions, but ultimately we moved to deny unless.
Okay. David.
I just want to understand.
Grab a microphone, please.
Are they asking for anything more than their as of right plus the transit bonus that's clearly defined in the zoning?
They're asking for 2 waivers for the extra bonus, and then.
But the extra bonus is not, it's in the zoning code. They don't need our permission for that, right?
You need certification though from the.
Okay. So
from
they
DCP.
need certification from the community board for that.
No, we're just advisory, but ultimately DCP will grant this certification.
As long as they follow the rules.
They will review the application.
Okay. And then I guess the other question I have for you is do we have an understanding of what the budget of the transit improvement they're going to do? And then also what the property tax expected is for this building?
It was not outlined, but I'm sure the zoning bonus tries to account for that.
But what, I mean, was it not asked what the budget, the money that they're going to spend on the subway system in exchange for this ZFA?
No. They couldn't answer it.
They couldn't answer it?
They didn't answer.
Okay. Questions to this resolution as is? Okay, go ahead, Zul. Grab a mic now.
Okay, so during the meeting, I did ask that I advocated for an unconditional denial, and I'll tell you a number of reasons why.
Is there questions, Zul?
I thought we were doing comments.
No, we're in questions still.
No.
Okay. Any other questions to the resolution as is? Lev. And then, sorry.
What were the 2 waivers?
So the second one was about daylight modification,
In the first one?
the 20% bonus.
Is that a waiver or it's allowed by?
It's the certification they're asking DCP for.
It's the offset for the transit improvement. They get a 20% bonus, but that has to go through DCP.
Okay.
Let's try and keep this.
Because this needs clarification. So what they're asking for was under ZR 66521. So if granted, so this is regarding daylight. So if granted, this does not modify the daylight rule, it sets it aside. So basically things that have been asked for by numerous communities in terms of daylight and air, in this, it's a set aside. It's not a modification. They don't have to obey the law.
Todd.
Yes, can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Can everybody-
yes, we can. Sorry, Todd.
Okay, so this is related to what Zul just said. I'd like to know, excuse me, I'd like to know about the environmental impact statement that said there would be no adverse shadow impacts, and whether or not the committee probed that. And it seems to me the issue with these extra tall buildings, it's hard for me to imagine that an environmental impact statement would be waved through without any substantial impact or commentary. Could you just speak to how that came across and whether that was fully explored at the committee hearing.
So we did receive a negative declaration report, and it said regarding shadows as there's no negative impact to parks or sensitive landmark features. So we took that, and it was in the reso that there is no adverse shadow impacts.
Okay, I'll return to this in comments. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Todd. Catherine, grab a microphone.
I'm wondering if some of this narrative can't be added to the resolution because it is relevant, whether or not it represents some of what we've heard tonight about light and noise, and that it was considered is important to be on record for as it goes through whatever process it goes through, that we at least said what we said. So I don't know how to introduce it, so don't ask me that part.
Let's return to that when we get to comments and discussion. If you want to add an amendment to this, we can do that then, but any other questions? Okay, now let's move to comments. Zool.
What Extel is doing is a crime in progress. They are demolishing right now in real time the Hotel Wellington, which was a magnificent possibility for sustainable housing, for supportive housing, just as Hotel Penn would have been. So this would have been zero carbon footprint as opposed to this monstrosity that will next take place with very, very little cost to the city to really create the affordable housing that we need. Extel is offering no affordable housing. It is part hotel and condos. These are investment condos. Very few people will actually be living there. They are offering no public space, absolutely nothing to serve the public with this building. In return for what has already been court mandated, they have made an undisclosed deal, an amount that we do not know, which will entitle them to an additional 17 stories. So great loss. You know, we've allowed NYU and Columbia, my alma mater, Rockefeller to use eminent domain, but the city doesn't do it. And this is a perfect example where eminent domain would have been applicable for a very reasonable market value. We would have paid the owners and we would have had people off the street into supportive housing, which is permanent housing, which we so badly need to get people out of the temporary shelters that we have. So further here, the payoff is absurd. So instead of the as of right, you know, people march in the city against, you know, kings, but this is noblesse oblige as of right. So they're going to go from 53 stories to 71 stories. And any one of you know, you walk around any block where you see anything like that. Yeah, there's a real effect on light in that neighborhood. So let's give them some benefit of the doubt here. So then just be clear. With this, this was decided in June 2022, Center for Independence of the Disabled, New York versus MTA, De La Rosa versus MTA, and approved in April 2023. MTA must do this. So Extel is giving an undisclosed amount of money for something that the city already has to do. So we get zero out of this. But it's far worse because with these daylight rules, these are not waivers that modify the rule, they eliminate the rule. For whatever reason, Extel doesn't have to obey any of this. So this is just outrageous. So I'm going to leave it at that because I've spoken long enough. But I would like to ask the parliamentarian, how is it possible, if we can, to introduce a motion for unconditional denial?
So in order to introduce that motion, you would have to have the language for what lines you'd like to remove or amend, and if there's any additions, what those would be. Do you have that prepared?
Take all these,
Great. Take the microphone back.
Yeah,
please.
I would take all these whereases and add just to it as far as this, which I don't think we have. We could be a little more specific in the whereases in terms of the daylight rule. It's ZR 66-521. Just make the point that the daylight rule is not modified but set aside, a terrible precedent.
So Zul, can I recommend that maybe you take a little time to formulate this amendment and then we come back to you?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. David.
Hi, folks. Sorry for my outburst earlier. This stuff gets me really upset. You know, here we have, and I forgot to ask the question, are any of these air rights coming from a landmark? Do we know that at all? We don't know that? It's not. Okay. So for something like this in Midtown Manhattan, if we can't put density in Midtown Manhattan, then what are we doing as a city, right? This is an opportunity for us to build housing, to build commercial space, to add property taxes to our rent rolls. My estimate is anywhere from $30 to $50 million of property taxes a year. That pays for policemen, that pays for teachers, that pays for firefighters. That is the engine of this city. You know, building this thing, union construction jobs, union hotel employees. You know, there was a note about carbon efficiency. Towers are the most carbon efficient residential or any sort of building there is. And whatever there is on the density at the top, you make that up for the transit carbon efficiency that you get. I get so passionate about this stuff because we should be able to build big buildings. And I understand that folks want affordable housing, but look, I've worked on transactions like this where the cost to build just doesn't make sense for affordable housing here. But what that does do is that it provides a lot of resources to the city. And they're doing exactly what this transit improvement bonus is supposed to do. They pay anywhere from, I think it's $15 to $40 million to do that, and they get this additional bonus. So I would like to propose to change this from denial unless to approve with these conditions. And that is the only change that I have to the document.
So historically, I have come down in favor of a decision like that, but I have been overruled on multiple occasions. So that I'm going to rule as not a germane amendment. Go ahead, Samir. I see. Thank you.
And to match what we did in the past, to make that germane, I will make a motion to substitute this resolution with the exact same language, except changing those few words from, where does it say denial unless? I can't even see it. Recommends denial unless. I would change that on line 123. Exact same motion, except recommends approval with the following conditions, which is what we did last time, and that was germane.
That is germane. It's a little bit different because last time we tabled it and then introduced a new one, but we can do a substitution instead if you'd prefer.
I'd rather just to make it one thing instead of two things.
Sure. So just for everyone, so everyone understands how this works, in a substitution is a form of amendment where something like this is germane. It is a little bit strange in that we are going to be debating both of these at the same time. You don't debate just the substitution. We're talking about both of them. And then at the end of this, I will restate sort of the two options and we will vote then. Are there any questions or is everyone clear on the process, or should we just sort of go through it and we can kind of deal with it as we go? Sure. So the first option is the resolution in your package, which is a denial unless. The other option, which we will vote on later, modifies line 123 in your packets to say recommends an approval and then changes with the following conditions from unless the following conditions are met after we have the debate. So are there any questions to that motion to substitute? Thank you. Thank you. Is there a second? Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions to that motion to substitute? All right. Comments? Samir.
Yeah, I don't need to repeat most of what David said. I would just add a few things. One is we've had these proposals in the past when we have a building and they're trying to build a little bit taller to give a benefit to the community. And personally, frankly, I cannot tell the difference when I'm on the ground from a 53-story building to a 71-story building, but I can tell the difference that I will be able to use the accessible elevator at the 50th Street and Broadway. I assume it's the one train. I don't think it said in the packet, but the one train to take my nephew in his stroller down the stairs, or not down the stairs, down the elevator, so we can take the subway and get to Brooklyn where he lives, or I guess he'd be coming to me. Anyways, so I see many numerous benefits from this transit improvement, and I think the costs are really not there. We're not talking about going from nothing to a 70-story building. We're talking about going from a 53-story building to a 72-story building, or whatever exactly it is. And you really just can't tell from the ground. It really does not matter.
Thank you, Samir. Todd.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Traditionally, our community board has used the deny unless as compared to the approve with to show a stronger sense of disapproval of what's happening, albeit with changes to make it more palatable. What came out of the committee was a deny unless. What we're seeing here is an attempt to reverse what came out of the committee. We should give great deference to what came out of our land use housing committee. That was their sentiment, and I'm not hearing anything that would make me change my mind. This is a difficult issue. I think we should keep it the way it is. I have something to say when we get to the issue of what Zool is mentioning, but I would say no, keep it as deny unless, right? That's what I have to say. I would urge my colleagues to keep it the way it is, and we'll continue our debate on the merits of this thing.
Thank you, Todd. Ankur.
Thank you. So I wanted to explain why I voted against the resolution in your packet at the Land Use Committee on which I serve, and explain why I support the motion to substitute for an approval with conditions that we're going to discuss this evening. So while we all acknowledge the value of these proposed accessibility improvements, our Land Use Committee nonetheless voted against Excel's application because of significant community concerns regarding construction impacts and neighborhood quality of life. So first, I'd like to state that I think that the conditions outlined in the resolution are reasonable enough, and I'm willing to approve this if it was an approve with the exact same conditions listed there. I, in fact, tried to make that motion during the land use meeting, but it was overruled, although we're going to have an opportunity to vote on that tonight. So, when it comes to land use issues, in my experience, the single most important decision we have to make is whether we're going to say yes or no. If you look at the public reporting and politician statements around the two recent land use actions involving CB5, City of Yes and Midtown South and the Midtown South rezoning, the key fact that was reported in both cases was that we supported those measures. For City of Yes, politicians and publications cited the total number of districts that voted for it. And for Midtown South, the reporting compared our yes against CB4's no. And our public officials went out of their way to specifically compliment that our board worked to get to a yes. So that's the stakes here, and that's why it's so important. And no matter how reasonable our conditions are, in my view, the message we're sending with the resolution in the packet as written is that we do not support increased density for subway access improvements. Instead, I think the message that resolution is sending is that if a well-organized group of locals opposes a change, we will honor their opposition. While it's true that there was significant community concern at that meeting and tonight's, the folks who attended the land use meeting or watched that video will know that most of the pushback came from people who lived directly right next door to the new building. And what they were worried about overwhelmingly was losing light or views. You know that's true because if you watch the video, you will see that there is question after question about the exact location of the setbacks of the new building because people wanted to measure how far it would be from their windows. What we didn't hear from at the Land Use Committee, however, was a single person with a disability who wanted to use the 50th Street station. There were other folks, including members from our boards, who had concern about security and homelessness, and I agree those are legitimate concerns, but those concerns are directed to our elected officials whose job it is to address those problems. We have been to meeting after meeting where we have elected officials and their representatives come and share what they're working on and invite us to events that they go to. But I cannot think of a single meeting where we've pushed them on security and homelessness issues. Instead, what we do is we save those questions for private developers. And we use that to push against their new buildings, even though it's not their responsibility to fix those problems. Excel's proposal meets all of the requirements for the Zoning for Accessibility program. The new housing is needed, and as are the accessibility improvements. This is the most cost-effective way to provide for accessibility improvements that are required by law. Our city is facing a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit. You can see it in the news. Why shouldn't the city get the developers to pay for the improvements if we can? And while there's no affordable housing mandated by this rule, it means, as we've heard tonight, that the owners will pay significant unabated property taxes, which our city desperately needs as we're trying to deal with a multi-billion-dollar budget shortfall. Given these concerns, I support the motion to substitute for an approval with the conditions outlined in the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankur. Kevin, yeah, go ahead. Thompson, yes, Thompson and then Friss.
Thank you. Thank you. I would just say that everything this committee does is actually in the purview of an elected official. So somebody, everything we discuss here is going to go to an elected official or some executive body in government at some point. So that just keep that in mind. I live directly across from the development. And when I spoke at the committee meeting, I actually came to that meeting sort of thinking, and I'm heavily influenced by my mentor, Todd, thinking, this is kind of a done deal in a lot of ways, but what could happen here that would be at least advantageous for me and my neighbors? All politics is local. I think Tip O'Neill said that once. And I see it in almost every committee meeting. And I listen attentively. And when local people, including the members of this board, speak about developments, restaurants, liquor licenses, all of that in their own communities, I generally am sympathetic because you live there. Our role is to listen to the people that live there. There wasn't a single person that came to that committee meeting that was from the community that was in support of this measure. That's why it's deny unless. That's why it should stay deny unless. Let's support what the community is, the spirit of what they're talking about. Secondly, I offered a very, what I thought, carefully written resolution to the committee. I distributed the resolution during the meeting, as I was told to do. And I thought what would be written here would be more representative of what I had offered, because I left the meeting thinking, oh, the majority, not all, because there was one member who voted against it, actually, this was a good meeting. They heard us, and this is fabulous. And I'm reading this resolution, and I feel like it's very watered down. It's not specific, and there's several key things that are not here that I offered. Namely, one of my colleagues on the board just mentioned about homelessness and about other issues that are related to the jobs of elected officials. We're not talking about somebody building a 3-story structure, some home. We're talking about one of the largest developers in the city who is an active player. They have immense influence. They see the commissioner of buildings almost daily. I don't even know, I wouldn't know the commissioner if the person walked past me. literally. But I wish I did, because there's a scaffolding across the street that has been a blight in our neighborhood for 15 years. 15. It's not a reach for our community to say to you, deny unless you can ask Extel to do something about that blight. That was reasonable. That's not the job of my councilwoman, who has tried and tried and tried and tried. Now we have an opportunity, but we're going to walk away from it. Yes, they are not in compliance. Their own environmental statement says they're not in compliance with the sunlight issue, the daylight issues. So they're going to get the waiver, and that's fine. And the tower is going to be built, and that's fine too. I'm concerned about how we live in the 5 years that it will take to construct the tower. What is our quality of life like? And that's what you should be concerned about. And if you're not concerned about that, remember, I will remember it, because I'm not going to be concerned about what you're worried about when your time comes. And I'm being really honest about that, because everybody here is going to say something about something on their block at some point. This is on my block, so it's personal. I'm not against the tower. I'm all for the ADA improvements at the train station. I think that's great. But I want the quality of life issues addressed. They're not addressed here, and I want to keep denying less. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, Kevin.
Just a question. First of all, is this our only opportunity to comment in general?
No. So when we are concluded comments related to the motion to substitute, there will still be an opportunity to comment on whatever the resolution looks like at the end of that. So you can, but you can also use this opportunity to discuss one versus the other.
Got it. I'll save a broader comment for that. I'm advocating in favor of keeping the deny unless.
Great. Thank you. Robert.
So I just want to lend my voice to the proposed amendment. So I want to respond to a couple things that people have said without rehashing what others have said. So the point was made that all politics is local. I agree with that to a point, but the housing crisis that I think everybody here agrees is facing the city is not a hyper local issue. It's a citywide issue, and addressing it means a whole bunch of things at different levels. But one thing it means specifically is community boards lending their voice in favor of proposed developments. And when we're talking about Midtown Manhattan, that means dense development. This is a proposed development that complies, I understand, with the requirements of a considered program that provides density bonuses for transit improvements. I think everybody here agrees that those transit improvements are valuable. But not only that, I don't view the additional density as any kind of cost or downside to the city. As others have pointed out, we're talking about more people getting to live here, more people getting to visit in the forms of the hotel rooms, and more tax revenue that is desperately needed for a city that's facing a significant budget deficit. A couple other very quick points. When people say, listen to the people who live here, I do think it is very important to point out that, in my view, what we are doing here as a community board is not just taking into account the needs of the people who live here now. We should be thinking and consider ourselves stewards of the community that not only is here right now, but the community that will come into being. That means people who do not live here because they don't have the opportunity to. So we're talking about building new houses, those voices that do not exist, they count too, and we should be representing them. So anyway, with that, I strongly support the amendment.
Thank you. I'm just gonna go online. Athena, not to call you up, but I did see your hand up earlier and I didn't get to you. Do you still have a comment?
Hi, sorry, my child repeatedly lowered my hand. Although I do have
Okay.
I strongly support I am, first of all, I'm not on the land use committee, but I strongly support the committee's original resolution to propose denial with condition. Given what we've heard from the public tonight and the fact that 0 unit of affordable housing is proposed in the plan. Right. It just seems obvious to me this is less about our housing crisis, more about adding another luxury building in Midtown. And in this case, they've, sweetened the deal a little bit with the accessible elevator and stuff. But to me, it's still like, if you have the plot of land and you use it for affordable housing, wouldn't that be so much nicer for the city and for the city crisis that we all have? And for someone to say they're defending a right that a business have and their ability to pay taxes into the city without considering the fact that nobody who has a strong will of using the building, strongly supportive of the project, came to speak with us, just seems to me so counterintuitive. And so to summarize, I support the original land use committee decision.
Great, thank you. Mike Kabak.
Thank you. I'm going to vote against this amendment, this resolution. We're the voice of the community, and we heard what the community had to say. We heard the people who came here. We heard one of our members who lives across the street. I'm going to vote against it. I want to cite 2 examples, recent examples of buildings that went up. The first one would be the Pennsylvania Hotel Pennsylvania, which we approved. Then they knocked down that building, and it's there now. It's been there for 2 years. Who knows how much longer that big hole in the ground, big ugly hole in the ground is going to be there. And when you talk to them, well, we need a tenant an anchor tenant before, again and again and again. So we might have a big hole in the ground with this thing. Second, the Margaritaville Hotel, maybe you know where that is. It used to be Parsons School of Design on the corner of 7th Avenue and 41st Street. I used to go to a temple that was in the basement of that of the Parsons School of Design. You know, there used to be a Orthodox Jewish temple there, and they were promised if they would walk away that the new whoever the new building was that took that space would guarantee them a new home in the basement of their building. And so they moved and they waited and they waited and they waited and they waited. And finally they were told, well, the guy who made you that promise is no longer involved with the building. He sold his rights to somebody else. And they're out of business. The temple's out of business. So I foresee this great list of unlesses as meaningless. If it just doesn't happen the way we'd like it to happen and the way we make it to happen. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against this thing with just a no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Renal.
Look, points I'd like to make. Just one is just a straight observation. I mean, it's great. Yes, new people will be moving into the neighborhood, which is great. We're adding new housing. This is adding 130 units with an average square footage of an apartment of over 2,000. I think it's 2,300 square feet. So this is not, not to say one kind or another, but it is ultra luxury housing that we're looking at. Nothing wrong with that, but we just have to put that in context. The second thing is, if you read the resolution as it stands right now, none of the conditions for deny unless, none of the conditions actually say building's too tall, we don't like that, we don't want the additional people moving in, none of that. They have to do with the quality of life issues that people that are already living there are facing or will face when the construction starts. And I think that people felt strongly enough that a deny unless resolution sent a message that was harder to ignore than an approve with conditions message. And that was the sole reason from my recollection of the meeting why this went the direction of deny unless, not one with approve with conditions. We just felt that the powers that be are much more likely to take us seriously if it was a deny unless instead of an approve with conditions.
Thank you, Mernal. You're on.
So I want to say a couple of things. So I drafted this resolution, and as a drafter of a resolution, it is my job, as I interpret it, to capture the essence of the conversation and the sentiment of the committee and put it into a resolution. And I'm glad that Mernal said what he did, because I think he exactly captures where the committee was. I don't think the committee was broadly against the project in its concept, but the committee had a lot of reservations about sort of the execution of what was going to be done, about many of the things that Kevin has said about quality of life issues and whatnot. And that is ultimately why the committee voted to deny the application with these stipulations. You know, on a procedural note, I'm going to say, and I think it's really important to emphasize this to everyone, if you feel that a resolution does not capture accurately what a conversation at committee was, or you have any questions or issues with it, we changed our entire meeting schedule in order for these resolutions to go out a week in advance of this meeting. It is simply more productive to bring those questions and considerations and issues up as soon as the resolutions are sent out to the committee chair, as opposed to at this meeting now. So I would just urge everyone to think about trying to do that in advance and as far advance of this meeting as possible. Now, to the substance of the amendment that's been made, you know, I think this, and I've said this to Brad, I think this board needs to have a larger, higher level strategic conversation about deny and approve, because we are not on the same page about what these words mean. And we have decided as a board that there are sort of 4 things we can do. We can approve something, we can approve it with conditions, we could deny something with conditions, or we can deny it outright. I don't know if those are actually true. I don't know which of those are more effective. These are all stories we've told ourselves about what's more effective and what is, you know, what is stronger, not. We need to have that conversation. Tonight, now is not the time to have that conversation. And so I am against this amendment because I think we should defer to what the committee did and the work that it put in. But I do think we need to have a conversation about what these words mean and what our perspective as a board is on how we should be treating applications like this.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment on land use applications. The reason why it's deny unless, approve with conditions is because when I upload the board's decision to DCP, that is the drop-down menu that I must choose from. So that's not the case with other agencies, but that is the case with DCP. So it must be in one of those forms, or I'm left to interpret what you meant by the resolution.
Go ahead, Lev.
I'd just like to add one thing. I mean, everyone's talking about the height, the size, the luxury. Whereas, I mean, there's going to be 400,000 square feet of a commercial space that will create a ton of permanent jobs, you know, in the hotel. And also, I mean, we are in a crisis. People are talking about the housing crisis, but also in a hotel room crisis. I mean, you're trying to rent a room in a hotel, even just stay overnight here, it's $1,000 a night. Like, really? So, look, there are issues. There's always going to be issues with everything that we do building on both fronts. Affordable luxury. We should not stop this project from going up taller, because it's a lot of positives that will come with it, including $150 million in taxes a year potentially collected. The city will be collecting here. So what are we doing? You know, this hotel been empty for how long? 5 years, 6 years? It's gonna stay empty for another 10 years. So I mean, I don't know, resolution, just I want to speak my mind on that.
Okay. Thank you. I would just like to remind you all that we have 13 more resolutions to talk about tonight. I see you, Zulba. Are there any other comments from anyone who hasn't spoken thus far about this? Go ahead, Tom.
just doesn't like you. Here, take that one.
This one likes me better. I'll be quick, Brad. This is my comment. Three things. One is, and I think it was pointed out before, but like as is, this is a empty hotel that was not going to continue as a hotel in Times Square. And I'm not saying anything against the neighborhood. Just this was empty space that was not being used. It's being developed as a hotel and then as space above, right? And this is the right space to do this. This is probably the best place to do it.
Please limit crosstalk in the room. Continue, Tom.
I understand. And it's right. It's not Times Square, but it is the district of, this is mixed use space. So it's developing residential on top of commercial. Wonderful, mixed use. Number two, the company Extel. The way I would put it is they've always, they have negotiated with communities and they've kept their word to the letter of the word, but they've also flaunted city council, right? Like they are what they are. But if you look at the projects they have as composed to some of the other super talls and the developers of some super talls, would say best of breed. I don't know the nice way to put it, but best of breed, right? Like at the end of the day, they have done things like they don't have to add affordable housing. We won't talk about how they added the affordable housing and the complaints about it, but they have done that. They have gone and asked and worked with groups before, and they've also never left a mess. And they've always, if they've said they're going to put housing, they've put housing. They said they were going to work these hours, they've worked hours. We have, you know, there's a super tall tower in the South Seaport, not them, that's leaning because they got too cheap. We have one of the other super talls that the concrete's already breaking. We have these sort of problems. So if you're going to look for someone to actually work with and build in the community, and let's say this is a necessary evil, Extel is of the best of these people that do this, right? Like at the end of the day. And that leads to the third thing of why I would be against the amendment is to stick with our friend here. He said, look, time was thought about these asks. This is a group that we know will consider asks and will give us an honest answer on the asks and will follow through. I can't say that enough about other developers. And I wish we spent time a little bit when we look at this and looking at who's asking, right? Like these guys, for whatever they are, whatever your thoughts are, they've always said what they were going to do. And they did it to the letter of what they promised. And I want to be very stick on that too, if people want to go and argue semantics about it. But like we're looking in, if you're looking for someone that's willing to make a deal and will stick with the deal, I think that's the proper time to say deny less. Because I think as a community, we're saying, hey, these are the things that are important to us. If you can agree to this, we can give you your acceptance. Because when they've gotten that, they've worked with the community. When you tell them no, they find a loophole and do what they want.
Thank
Better
you.
or worse.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not, I think that the conditions we have in here are fine. I just want to, I want to take the flag and say, we're approving new housing. That's what I want to do. I want to get, I want the box to be clicked that we're approved with these conditions, because I think that that's important to the city. It's important to the housing crisis. And I think it's really important for us to say that. So I'm going to continue to support an approval with these conditions, which I think are reasonable. And I would like to see all these conditions met. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Christopher.
Thanks. Yes, okay. So I do think we get a lot more out of an approve than a deny. And I think it's an important thing for us to argue about. We know what the parameters are now, thanks to Marissa, and how the parameters are going to be kind of laid out. And that does seem to be the question. We all agree that the conditions are pretty good. Like, okay, nobody's arguing about what these conditions are. The question is, do we get more out of saying yes with these conditions because we want, you know, these things, or do we get more out of saying no because we're representing something? But I have big problems with the way the board operates in relation to how the committees are structured, how we like think that merely because the committee has made a decision, we should go with it. Like, I don't like this. I know it's a tradition that happens here a lot, but I think the coming to the full board and having the full discussion is the moment where we're actually deliberating. It's not done at a meeting that we're not all invited to. It's done at a meeting where we're actually all in the room and supposed to be here. That the actions of the committees are advisory to us, in as much as our actions are advisory to someone else. But those committee recommendations are advisory, and we do have a right to look at the video, take our time, and do that. I'd also like to know, and this is a rhetorical question, what we're supposed to be doing in the week between when the resolutions are issued and now. Is it really the mind of people in this room that we're supposed to behind the scenes rewrite the resolutions so that they sound better here? It doesn't see, or that we should get our debating done before we come here. That shouldn't happen. And I don't like that idea. I do like the idea of efficiency, but what is the process by which I'm supposed to approach a chair that I have a personal relationship with, or a chair that I have no idea who this person is? Those people exist. It's a large board. So this concept that we should get this all settled before we get here, I don't like it at all. We should settle it here. We should be very clear about what the parameters are. And clearly, it's either approve or deny. We like the conditions. I think approve is a lot stronger. I've heard a lot of arguments about this. I came in pretty much neutral on the concept. But, one of the very early speakers said the elected officials notice more when we say approve and then put the conditions in. So why don't we do what the elected officials notice more? What gets more out of it? We support these conditions. Finally, there is a very bad pattern of saying who the community is, right? I don't know that we'll ever come to a real agreement on who they are, nor should we, but I do think it's lazy of us to just accept the loudest, most organized people who come, the people who are the most passionate. I do not disrespect them. I like them. I'm glad they come. I want them to be here. But we have to balance the interests of everyone. And just to go with whoever's, the most vested or shouting the loudest about this doesn't always behoove us. So there are lots of times where the concept is, we just do whatever the committee says. The committee didn't fully, every single stakeholder doesn't come to the committee meeting. And then we're going to rely on just, a very small group of active community members who have their own motivations. I don't question those motivations. I just think we should balance these things out. And I think in balance, saying approve in this situation probably gets us more.
Okay, thank you. You did say it was rhetorical, but I do feel like I should respond to what we should be doing in that interim week, which is the idea is not that we are having the discussion and having a pre-meeting in violation of open meetings law, but the intention is that you should feel comfortable to reach out to any chair, even a committee that you are not on. If you do not have their contact information, the office can provide it. I don't think I'm going to speak for all of my chairs now. I think they would all welcome that feedback, with the idea that we can come to these meetings prepared if there are changes that need to happen to make them. We've done it in the past on the fly, where we have the chairs themselves, in understanding that there was something that was not properly addressed or that needs to be reconsidered, have made the motion. And so it is just a much smoother process. That is the intention, not that we are debating this in secret rooms beforehand and then coming to this all having decided our minds before we all had a chance to discuss it together. Did I get it right?
Yes.
All right.
I'm just going to add one thing, and it's to have the conversation here be as informed as possible, to come with documents, to come with citations, and all of the things that we could do if we were prepared. Sorry.
Great. Okay. So we are still debating the motion to substitute. I see a couple hands up here that are duplicates, so I want to give other people who have not spoken the opportunity to do so. Okay, go ahead, Zul. You're the last one.
Give me 60 seconds, please. So, Brad, with respect to you and to exec, really, you're doing very, very good work, and it's very difficult. And Christopher, thank you so much, because I do agree with you. There really are structural problems in the way in which this board, does its decision making. And Marissa, Mernal, you're exactly right in what you pointed out, and particularly you're right. We have limited time, and we're going to have to go with this. So, but let me just say this to the real estate developers, the venture cap, equity people, bankers in the room and beyond. You have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders, and we respect that. But what we have here really is this is not just luxury hotel rooms in an area where there are a multitude of luxury hotel rooms. This is condos going up that it is these are investment condos. These are going to be owned by people all over the world who are parking their money there. This is not housing of any kind by any means. This is investment property. Hotel Wellington sat there empty because somebody speculated on it, right? Had the city had some direction that perhaps it's taking on now, and looking at the property, say, oh yeah, we can acquire this through eminent domain and get the supportive housing, permanent housing that we need. And that, look, we're going to continue to build luxury housing. We want luxury housing. We want wealthy people here as well as we want everybody else. But this is setting a very, very bad precedent, because what we're getting in return for 17 additional stories, that's not nothing. It really isn't. It's quite a bit to go from 53 stories to 71, particularly straight up at a time when I was in an urban studies class the other day, thanks to Christopher, and I asked the kids, what do you guys think? Do you think it's possible that this city could be largely energy and food and independent? They said, oh yeah, you just build setbacks and terraces and green rooftops, and you can put on solar panels and windmills. Robert was talking about, the next generations. This is the future focus. We should have a future focus on what we're doing and not continue to build these super tolls that really offer us nothing but pain. So I'm not going to push ahead with a substitute for denial. I will vote for the deny although I think this is a terrible precedent, because just recognize what Extel is doing. We have no idea what the amount was. They wouldn't tell us. It's already been court mandated, so the MTA has to do this. And then as far as the other waivers, they're really not waivers at all. This is not modifying the law. It's saying, Extel, you don't have to obey the law. I don't know, maybe you think that's a good idea, that the rich and the powerful don't have to obey the law, while the poor and the working class do.
Okay, thank you. If you're just going to call the question, I think we're just going to go ahead. Okay, so we are going to take this to a vote. And just to recap for everyone, this is a vote on the motion to substitute. And so the original amendment is the one that or the original resolution is the one that you have in your package. The substituted one is substituted as follows on line 123. It changes from recommends denial of the requested zoning authorization, requested zoning authorizations unless the following conditions are met, to recommends approval of the requested zoning requested zoning authorizations with the following conditions to be met clearly with, I don't know how we want to phrase that. Approval of the following conditions. All right, we'll wordsmith it afterwards, but I don't think that changes the substance of it if we change a few of the prepositions afterwards. So, so the question is, shall the resolution be the one that I just read be the one that we move forward with? The denial, or sorry, the approval with conditions. Approval with conditions. So if you vote yes, you are saying I would like to change this to an approval with conditions. If you vote no, you are saying I would like to keep it a denial with conditions. We're not debating just denial right now. It's just approval with conditions versus denial with conditions.
Here's where I'm confused. I'm just trying to make sure I orderly get this right. Denial versus denial with conditions was the first.
Yeah, we didn't.
We ignored that. Excuse me. All right, I understand.
Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to do this by a show of hands. If it's close, we'll switch to a roll call. So all those in favor. In favor, which would be changing this to an approval with conditions.
For those people that are online, you need to put your cameras on so we can see hands raised.
Thank you, Marisa. Okay. And then All those against? Okay, so the motion fails. So now we are still considering the original motion, which is in your packets as written. Any other comments? Samir?
Yeah, I'm going to vote no. I really feel like on the checkbox, we should say approve, and we're not saying approve. I actually find some of these, the thing is like when we're all term limited out in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, when people look back, what they're going to see is a resolution that says we denied because they didn't adhere to a single one of these bullet points. I actually don't agree with some of them. I think that asking them to go above and beyond for certain requirements like noise mitigation, I think is unreasonable. I think that we're talking about subway improvements and those should be around the clock so we get them faster. But anyways, I think I have to vote no just because we're saying deny, and I think we should say approve.
Thank you. Mandy?
For me, I actually abstain from the last vote because although I am supportive, generally speaking, of development, I think there's a bit of a lack of information from my perspective. I think that we all are, supporters of additional budget and money spent to improve the subway systems and accessibility. But for me, without any information around what the actual budget and monetary spend they are in order to get their incentives and the waivers that they're looking for, it isn't enough for me to kind of be able to really evaluate that difference.
Thank you. Comments? Kevin?
Yeah, just quickly on this resolution, I just wanted to point out just the barbell of what the building is getting from the extra 20 stories versus what it's costing them. So the extra 20 stories are going to be valued, somewhere maybe 2,000 to 4,000 per square foot. So that's, hundreds of millions of dollars of extra value. And in exchange for that hundreds of millions of dollars of extra value, they're going to renovate a subway station, which we don't know how much that's going to cost, but say it's $50 million. So just, they're getting $400 million of value and they're paying $50 million to redo a subway station. All we're asking for are for some curb cuts to be renovated, community ombudsman, noise mitigation. I don't think any of these measures dramatically alters that one-way slant that this developer is getting from this deal. So that's why I feel strongly that it's fine to have a deny unless these relatively low-cost things are added to the resolution.
Thank you, Kevin. David?
Yeah, I'm going to vote vote against this because it's a deny. And then just quickly, just to follow up on the point, it's likely that this project doesn't work unless they have this additional profitability or revenue, or whatever you want to call it. To build something like this is roughly north of $1,000 a foot because of construction costs. So all of this stuff kind of comes together to make a certain return, so that capital goes into these things to build these things. So I don't agree with kind of the prior sort of economic situation. What I'm seeing is they are doing the subway transit improvement bonus and getting that bonus to make the project work so that we have something built here, that we have property tax, we don't have an empty building. I'm going to vote to deny because of it's a deny. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd?
Hi, I hope everybody can hear me.
We can.
Okay, so traditionally, our community board has been about pragmatism and working with what we have to get what we can, given the law and the realities of the situation. So it's already been noted that we're getting some worthy things for the community, but the bigger issue about whether or not this makes sense, the idea that this large building for the extremely well-to-do is going to move the needle for affordable housing and be a harbinger of a change to solve our problems is an illusion, okay? The remedy for that is structural change and more enlightened policy making on a broad scale. That's not the job of our community board. Our job is, as Kevin said, to represent the interests of our districts, and when we can, try to raise the flag and point out the justice or injustice and sensible policy in a broad sense. I will be voting for this, but I feel I want to say this for the record, right? We don't really know the larger macroeconomic impact of things to a certainty, as some here would say. The idea that we're losing light and building on a scale that's diminishing and casting shadow and holistically cramping the neighborhood with gigantism is something that you can't put a value on. So I think the other thing I would say is there are no simple answers to these issues. The idea that we're just going to say yes or no, right, is I think abdicating our responsibility. The whole idea of having a deny or approve with conditions, that's just democracy and being reasonable about what we can do. The idea that we have to send a signal and there's always a bright line answer to what we're doing, except for the most important issues, slavery, civil rights, everything are difficult decisions. So I urge my colleagues to consider that. I will be voting yes with serious reservations about the policy and the zoning laws that allow something like this to happen. But I think there's enough in there. The whereas clauses are calling attention to the problems with this. And let's just stick to the tradition of what our board does, which is to be pragmatic and get what we can and flag the difficult issues for our policymakers and the people in our community.
Thank you, Todd. Murnau.
Right. I mean, I don't understand why every resolution that comes out of land use ends up in this big virtue signaling exercise. We have a project in front of us. We evaluated it. We looked, these conditions that we're asking for, I don't think are major at all. We're not talking about the building being too tall. We're not talking about any light issues. All we're asking for is when the project is going up, take care of these issues. We feel strongly about these issues and just make sure that they are considered. That's all we're asking for. I don't understand why everything ends up being virtue signaling. That we should evaluate the project for its very merits and nothing else.
Thank you. Catherine, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I want to remove my request to add an amendment about.
Duly noted. Say no more.
About light and shadow and environmentals, but I do think that the board has some work to do across committees about these important topics, and they do come up in public comments, and that's why I had hoped to see one way or another the resolution sort of discuss the matter, but I don't think it's necessary to add an amendment.
Thank you, Catherine. Any other comments? Okay. Next one, Julie. We got two more for this one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna try to speed this up. An open air cafe at 1633 Broadway. This is a request for a fourth modification of a special permit to install an outdoor cafe at the Paramount Building. The proposed cafe would be 2,000 square feet, roughly 17 feet deep, running 120 feet along West 50th Street. The cafe would occupy publicly accessible open space that was a required condition of a special permit that allowed the building to increase its floor area ratio from 15 to 20.8, which is a massive density bonus. So for most of the year, this cafe would render 120-foot stretch of that public sidewalk unavailable for pedestrian circulation. CB5 reviewed a prior outdoor cafe application at the same property in May 2023, and that cafe was 639 square feet. So in this previous reso and in many of our POPs applications, CB5 has established a standard that commercial use of POPs is a public benefit only if, 1, seating may be used without purchase requirement, 2, clear signage open to the public, no purchase necessary, posted on the tables, and then restroom facilities made available to the public. So the applicant has declined all 3 conditions again, so the committee voted 9-0 to recommend denial unless these items are met.
Great, thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? You have a question, Mike? Yep, grab a mic, please. Thank you, Marisa. No, it's not yet.
Now it's got to, okay.
There you go.
Just a quick question. Was discussed at the meeting the width of the sidewalk? Is there, as far as this, there's enough room with this sidewalk for people to pass?
This was a sidewalk extension, so they're taking over that sidewalk extension. The public sidewalk is still there.
Thank you. Great. Any other questions? Catherine, grab a mic. Grab a microphone, please.
It helps to have the visual. Where's the, is it available? Can it be added?
Right now? I mean, later?
We can look at that going forward. I don't think it's available now or for this one or for our consideration, but we'll take a look at that in future ones. Thank you, Catherine. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, next one.
So you heard the ReThread project during the public session. So CB5 is being asked to support $250,000 in city council capital funding for the ReThread project, which it's going to fund feasibility and engineering studies to evaluate sites for permanently affordable manufacturing space in the Garment District. So ReThread is a nonprofit founded in 2023 with a focused mission to preserve New York City's garment and costume production ecosystem through affordable space, workforce training, and education. Their goal to acquire and develop at least 300,000 square feet of permanently affordable manufacturing and commercial space for garment production, costume design, related trades, and workforce training. This model follows proven examples of nonprofit managed industrial and creative production spaces that provide long-term below market space to keep workforce sectors in the city. They have committed to ongoing engagement with CB5. The targeted sites are within the M19A carve-out area of the Special Midtown South Mixed-Use District. If you remember, there was about 40 sites that were not zoned residential to help preserve the Garment District. The MX rezoning came with explicit public commitments to support the preservation and long-term viability of the Garment District and its workforce. The feasibility and engineering studies funded by this grant will evaluate sites for 300,000 square feet of permanent space. Getting the studies done is what unlocks the next phase: site acquisition, financing structures, agency coordination. And CB5's reso calls on the city to align multiple funding streams behind this: EDC, the Greenlight Innovation Fund, workforce development programs, and industrial retention initiatives. CB5 has consistently supported garment manufacturing, preservation, and workforce pipelines, and the committee voted 9-0 to support this funding.
Great, thank you. Conflicts? Questions? Comments? Mike? It's coming.
They're on. Okay, so I don't know if you know any history about this stuff, but this has been going on since 1985 when the Committee to Save the Garment Industry in New York City was formed. And of course, I've been around since 1967 in the Garment District and watched it shrink tremendously. It's evolution. In the early 2000s, one of the committees from the city came to me and asked me to bring their representatives to different buildings that had a lot of manufacturing in them, which I was able to do. And they made a proposition to several building owners, one at 270 West 38th Street and several others, to for the following agreement. Would you be willing to keep the rent at, it was at $37 a square foot at the time, and in exchange for keeping it steady and not rising with the economy, to get certain real estate tax benefits? And the landlord said, no, his building is still empty, by the way. What I'm saying is this: I totally support saving the garment district in New York City. I have been in it for my career, and I wish good luck, but unfortunately, I don't have great hopes for the maintenance of a major manufacturing hub in Manhattan in the garment district.
Thank you, Mike. David.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for the garment district, but it feels like we're propping up an industry here that's doesn't have long-term prospects. I'd rather see this 250 go to cops, firefighters, teachers, a litany of things that we could spend this money on. So I'll be voting against this just because I just like we don't have blacksmith areas where we're keeping blacksmiths in business. I just don't. If it's a nonprofit, they should go raise the money. They can do this themselves. I don't want to spend taxpayer dollars on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, that's it for land use. So next we'll move to landmarks. Kevin, you're up.
Okay, committee number 2. Landmarks had 3 resolutions this month. The first is an application from Central Park. As a reminder, Central Park is a official scenic landmark, so any significant changes to the park must get approval from any community board that touches the park. That includes us. So for this particular application, Central Park is redesigning all of the signs at every park entrance and at every park restroom. If you're curious, there are 54 official entrances into Central Park. If you're interested in what these signs, new signs, will look like, there are photos in the back of your resolution in the packet. The signs were visually a much needed improvement, and the park officials assured the committee that the signs will be installed in ways that do not alter the aesthetic aspects of the historic entrances. As usual, it was a very professional presentation and very well done. Passed committee unanimously 9-0-0.
Great. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Next one.
Okay. The second is 595 Madison Avenue, also known as the Fuller Building. This building is an individual landmark known for its Art Deco design and prominent location. 7th. This applicant is proposing a renovation and upgrade of its service elevator entrance, which is directly next to the main entrance of the building. Unlike most service entrances, this entrance is covered in brass, which gives it a bright gold appearance. So it is very much part of the building's exterior aesthetic on the ground floor. The good news, however, is that the changes are functional in nature and how the surface entrance door operates. They're not design related. So again, there's a photo in the resolution, and you can see that the new entrance is planned to be a nearly exact copy of the legacy door. So the committee approved this application unanimously, again, 9-0-0.
Thank you. Conflicts? Questions? Comments? Mike?
Thanks. Just for those of you who don't know, the Fuller Construction Company is the company that built the Flatiron Building, and the Flatiron and the Fuller Construction Company used to be in the Flatiron Building, but they outgrew it. And when they moved up to 57th and Madison, they kept a memory, a remnant of the Flatiron Building in the tile mosaic on the floor outside the elevator. As you approach them from the main entrance, to the left, you look down, you'll see the Flatiron Building embedded in the way. It's a historic company.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Michael. He is our Landmarks Committee resident historian. So we appreciate those fun facts. Exactly.
Any other comments? Okay.
The final application was from the Yale Club. Their building is at 50 Vanderbilt Avenue. The Yale Club is asking for two significant renovations to their building. The first is a modernization of their rooftop dining enclosure. The new enclosure is designed to be more weather resilient in cold winter months. The good news is that it will actually be less visible from the street than the current enclosure. So the committee had no issue with that proposal. The second aspect of the application is the renovation of all of the building's windows. Fairly significant, but fortunately they are going out of their way to make sure all of the new windows aesthetically to be a near replica of the existing legacy windows. So the committee had no issue with that proposal as well. So 3 for 3, this one passed unanimously 9-0-0.
Thank you. Conflicts? Questions? Comments? Question?
You're fine
it
if
is-
you have no financial gain.
Thank you, Marisa. Questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Next up, city services and quality of life. Melissa, thank you.
City Services and Quality of Life Committee had one resolution this month. May I have it deemed read?
So deemed.
Great. So this resolution is in support of the One City Act. So this is Assembly Bill A5916A, Senate Bill S3392A. The bill would allow New York City agencies to share residents' personal information with one another for the limited purpose of connecting people to additional benefits they may be eligible for. City agencies are not currently able to share information with each other, even when it would help the same person receive coordinated support. So the goal of this bill is to enable better coordination of information across agencies to increase opportunities to connect vulnerable New Yorkers with benefits. So a couple notes on how this legislation proposes this work. Any data sharing must be governed by a formal written interagency agreement approved by legal and privacy officers at all participating agencies. Agreements must specify exactly what information is shared with whom and for what purpose, and access is limited only to agency staff who need it to perform their specific role. And the bill explicitly prohibits use of any shared information for law enforcement or criminal investigation purposes. So our resolution was in support of the One City Act with a few callouts of key considerations and concerns around: one, providing individuals opportunities to consent or revoke consent to sharing and use of their data; two, ensuring a centralized database created that will leverage or house this data; and three, providing clear and appropriate communications to the communities being served, how their information may be shared, so that individuals fully understand what is happening with their data. And this resolution passed in committee 11-200.
Great. Thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Comments? David?
I voted against this. I have two major concerns here. I think that the way that the bill is written right now gives city agencies access to all of our personal information in a way that we have very little control over. And so it would be my preference to have something that says that we should 100% be able to opt into this, as opposed to all of our information is just there. And it's problematic. And then the second thing is that it's a little concerning to me is there's something written in here that says there will be no denial of benefits if somebody is not, if the information is shared and benefits, and through that information you will not get benefits, they will not take those benefits away from you, even if you do not deserve those benefits. So it's a one-sided policy to basically go out proactively to folks and give them benefits without understanding if those benefits are warranted. So those are two major issues with this that is the reason why I voted deny against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Kevin Thompson.
Comment and a question first before the comment. Can I do
Okay.
that?
Yeah, I'll allow
Thank
it.
you. Can you please tell me when you talk about benefits, you're just basically talking about any benefits that the state agencies would provide, such as SNAP or a housing voucher or
Yeah, exactly. Benefit.
exactly. Thank you. As many of you probably know, I work for Robinhood. I don't speak for Robinhood at this meeting, but my experience at Robinhood, which is the city's largest anti-poverty philanthropy, this is one of the #1 issues that keep people down because literally they don't know that they have been dropped from a program. They don't know that they have to reapply every 6 months for a benefit. One agency doesn't talk to the other. And then you get caught in a cycle. And literally, it can take you months to get back to where you just thought you were starting out again. So this is the kind of streamlining that people in need absolutely must have. It's a way to fight poverty. And I urge you to vote yes.
Thank you. Todd.
Hi, I hope everybody can hear me.
Yep.
I applaud this resolution, and it focused on, and it hits on the key point, which first of all, that any individual that's impacted by the release of this information has the right to hold his consent if they so choose, and that they, I'm quoting from the resolution, be meaningfully informed and have the opportunity to consent, and that any such consent be revocable. That's exactly the language that is in effect with regard to digital imagery. The other thing that I applaud the committee is the clause where it says that the agencies that are collaborating in this worthy cause put it in writing so that it's not hidden and that there's a record. So if things go off the rails, well-meaning citizens or nonprofit groups can hold these organizations and the city to account. So bravo for this, and I'm going to vote for it and approve it.
Thank you, Todd. Any other comments? Who are you giving the mic to? Tom. Okay, yeah.
I'll be voting for this. I spent a lot of time with what OTI was, designing a lot of the city systems when they were moving to cloud. So I'll say some things just really quickly. The city's well set up to do this, and it's not allowed to do personal information, but it does do this for cybersecurity. The way the city works is there's a big parent organization. Each one of the organizations within the city can choose to have a level of service from the city, right? And there's certain things within the city, like the Department of Finance, that have to go under certain regulations because of federal government, because of tax information, stuff like that. So when you deal with a SLED, a state and local education, when you deal with that, when you share information, you have to go to the most privileged information designate, right? So let's say if I am doing military stuff, I have to go to the IL 5 or 6. But when it comes to the data for personal information and this sort of data, it would have to go to a level where it's the same way they would treat your taxes. And each one of the departments are going to have to go and data broke to that level. So the most secure it has, that's going to carry over as they carry the information. That's a little thick, but think of it this way. They have to treat it as the most secure secret they have, each one of the agencies. And the ability for the city to enforce that is already within the framework of how the city handles data. So this isn't a technical problem for the city. The city is ready to handle that. And then in terms of law enforcement, so there's a regulation called CJIS, right? So the NYPD does not really use the city's IT information other than for their internet access. So they don't have an ability or some sort of upright to go to this data. In fact, they'd have to have a court order. So their systems are separate from these systems in a very complete way. And then if a state or federal organization, they don't have like root access to it. The city is completely separate, like it would be for another corporation. So combining this data does not, in a computer way, like in a cybersecurity way, all of a sudden give more access. Like the system's already set up to handle this. It just wasn't being done because of state law. I think the state law that was on the books, for my understanding, and I might be corrected if I'm wrong, was more about when the files were physical, right? And then it's a little bit more of a slippery slope, right? Cybersecurity, I can have in all of you today, all of your data are on these massive data centers and shared servers that are, you might be in the same one, your server for like your Gmail might be in the same place as your Spotify list. Could be the exact same server, but it doesn't touch. So there's that ability, but there's no slippery slope because encryption and other sorts of protections will keep that data from interacting. So the law was to protect physical files. There's no reason for the city not to be able to do it. And there's nothing that they're going to have to do or invest of a high degree to go and make this able and to make sure that this information is secure. So from, an AI cloud infrastructure side of it, there's no safety concerns. It's more of, hey, the law was protecting something that was ancient. They never updated for the fact that we live in a modern world. This is going to make a lot of people's lives better without any substantial downside risk.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up, Transportation Committee. Kieran, you're up. So are you.
No, go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Kieran Patel, Vice Chair of the Transportation Committee. We have one resolution. May I have it deemed read?
So deemed.
All right, so tonight's resolution is about a pilot program. I want to make that clear. It's a pilot program. DOT is working on a pilot program for microhubs. So microhubs are local distribution hubs, and the intention is to reduce delivery-related congestion, improve driver safety, people safety, and reduce the environmental footprint. Now, thanks to Tiffany for writing this resolution. She did a lot of work on this topic through at least 2 meetings with DOT. DOT specifically said they did not need a resolution because microhubs it's still such a work in progress. However, the committee decided to write a resolution to memorialize our asks and points of consideration for DOT. So we came up as a committee 11 points that DOT should consider during this pilot program. Again, the microhub sites within CB5 are yet to be determined. We asked, number one, that DOT, once they pick the sites, they actually field verify that the sites work, and before they go ahead, they provide feedback to the committee. 2, maintain daylighting. 3, define hours of operations. 4, ensure that the microhub footprint is fully contained. We don't want spillover into the bike lanes or the sidewalks, etc. 5, establish clear rules for operators. We want them to follow traffic laws and ensure they have unique ID numbers for each vehicle, whether it be a 2- or 4-wheeled vehicle. 6, have accountability. The operator companies are responsible for the employees' conduct. 7, clear signage. Install no parking, no idling, microhub only signage. 8, maintenance of clean and orderly microhub site conditions. 9, clarify how electric bikes and electric vehicles are to be charged in a way that does not impact the public realm. 10, implement noise controls and limit disruptive hours. And 11, prioritize reliable long-term partners to ensure consistency and accountability.
Thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Mike.
Mike, I'll make sure I speak into the mic.
I just want to make sure I understand what a micro hub is. From my window, I oftentimes see an Amazon truck parked outside and bunches of packages on the sidewalk. people on bicycles coming by, sifting through, taking them and going to deliver. Is that what we're talking about here?
It could be.
Yes? Is that a
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, next we move to state licenses and permits. SLAP. Seth, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Seth Borden, Chair of the State Licenses and Permits Committee. We have 3 resos tonight. May I have them deemed read?
So deemed.
All right. The first item is a letter of comment on temporary alcohol permitting modifications for the FIFA World Cup in 2026. David took the lead on this item and put together a letter which reflected the committee's concerns here. So I'll give some background and then we can discuss what we're voting on. The background is that we were originally intending to comment on a piece of legislation, which Assemblymember Simone came to speak to us about at our April full board meeting. And then a day before our committee meeting, Governor Hochul announced support for temporary modifications to alcohol permitting along the same lines as the legislation. So while we didn't have a specific piece of legislation to comment on, we did want to weigh in on this matter at a high level. So the letter, what you're actually voting on then is a letter to the state assembly and the governor expressing our position. And the gist is that we support a temporary modification to alcohol permitting, but with a list of conditions. And I'll just read out like a couple key ones here. The first one is that we would like it to be restricted from June 1st to July 31st of this year, which was the scope of the original legislation. And then we also asked that service stop 1 hour after the end of the last game. There's a potentially later stipulation in the proposal. So that's all. And we voted 13-0-1-0 with 1 abstention.
Great, thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Okay, next one.
All right, our second item was an application for a new liquor license at Bernie and Herbs, which will operate at 2834 East 16th Street on the west side of Union Square. Andrea took the lead here and successfully negotiated an affidavit, which was acceptable to the committee and to the applicant. At committee, we voted to approve that affidavit as written. And the key stipulation there is the applicant agreed to our standard stipulations in the affidavit, as well as a closing time of 2 a.m. each day. So this is a deny unless, so if they agree to the affidavit, it's effectively a no comment. And if they do not agree, it's a deny. The vote was unanimous, 13-0-0-0.
Great, thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Christopher, grab a microphone.
Sorry. Did the applicants sign or we're waiting to see?
Yeah, so the way it works is basically we have a set of agreements that we are aligned with them on. So they've essentially agreed to sign this one. Some applicants say, you know, the opposite, but these will agree to it.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, next one.
All right, our third and final item was an application for a method of operation change for Out of Ordinary, formerly doing business as Taj. And this currently operates at 48 West 21st Street. So we took advantage of Todd's wisdom on this one, and he took the lead because it was pretty complicated. For some background, we had initially denied Out of Ordinary in January for a similar application. They then withdrew their application and resubmitted with a more modest method of operation change request. And that essentially just excluded the request for later hours, but kept the other requests. So there was community feedback on this, which was very substantial. And it's similar to what we get for others on the block. And what you're voting on here is a set of stipulations on the applicant's method of operation, which will go into an affidavit. The most important stipulation here is that we ask them to limit hours to 2 a.m. in exchange for the other asks that are in there. So again, this is a deny unless. And in this case, actually, to preempt the question, they have indicated that they will likely not agree to the stipulations. So it's possible that this will end up being a deny, but we passed it as a deny unless. And it was 13-1-0-0-0 with one opposed.
Thank you. Conflicts? Questions? Christopher?
So for deny unless, I just want to understand, deny unless to me means like unless they do the things that are already in the stipulation, not whether or not they signed. So exactly what does deny unless mean in this context?
That's a fair, the way that we do it operationally is that if they sign, we assume they're going to stick to it. And basically the way that we enforce that they stick to those is if we find that there's non-compliance, essentially when they come for renewal is when we weigh in.
Robert?
Is there a typo on line 738?
Yes. Yes. Apologies. I actually did get a text about this. I was going to propose that change. Am I able to do
The friendly
an
amendment?
amendment
Yep.
myself? Yeah. Yes. So that's 2 a.m. instead of 2 p.m. That would be very limiting.
Okay. Any other, I think we're in questions. Questions? Comments? Christopher?
I'm voting no on this resolution. The committee decision made clear that the real problems are street disorder, crowd spillover, traffic, Uber pickups, sanitation, noise outside, inconsistent enforcement across the entire nightlife corridor, and this is not just about one venue's hours. Yet, the main thing that this resolution is seeking to do is to cut the hours at Taj. I don't think that we've been shown any evidence that cutting one venue back to 2 a.m. will materially improve the conditions on the block, especially when there are still other operators nearby. It may make us feel like we did something, but it's not the same as solving the problem. There is also a practical question. The operators have not agreed to sign this affidavit. So what are we voting on? The committee itself acknowledges that the SLA may not adopt or enforce these conditions, so the resolution may sound strong, but has no practical effect. I am concerned that this resolution leans far too heavily on the RLA, which is an outdated and unresolved policy. CB5's own 2024 RLA task force, which I was on, found that we have no data to show, or not enough data, to show whether the RLA is justified, whether the area is uniquely problematic, or whether the policy has worked at all. It also found that many complaints that come from the cumulative reality of nightlife in a mixed-use Manhattan neighborhood are not necessarily from the bad operators. I think that we should be careful about the framing here. Some in the testimony singled out Taj as a hip-hop, quote, these are quotes, hip-hop nightclub, and talked about people, again, direct quotes, being bussed in, and suggest that clubs like this and their patrons do not belong here with the, again, to me now stale quote, these clubs belong on the West Side Highway. It seems to be something that this group has agreed upon. I'm not accusing of anyone of bad faith, but the language is racially and culturally coded, and we should not let that kind of framing drive our licensing policy. The board should not be using one-off liquor license resolutions to referee between legacy nightlife businesses and the most organized property owners on the block. If the problem is corridor-wide and disorder, then the solution is a corridor-wide management with traffic control, street closures at peak hours, pickup zones on the avenues, coordinated security, sanitation measures, sound monitoring, real compliance tracking, and regular meetings with the NYPD, DOT, SLA, residents, and operators. That is not CB5. That would actually make the neighborhood more livable. This resolution doesn't get us there. It uses the RLA, which I know will be in discussion next month, and it deserves thorough discussion. It uses the RLA to pressure an operator without proving that doing so will solve the problem. So I'm voting no.
Thank you. Todd?
Okay, I'm hoping everybody can hear me.
Yep.
So this particular application and how our committee dealt with it is a mashup of all the problems in this neighborhood. The neighborhood has changed dramatically over the years, and I do agree that the issue of the RLA should be addressed. However, it's foolish to think, and I beg to differ with my esteemed colleague Christopher, that there are simple solutions to this problem. I can speak from my perspective of having done innumerable due diligence assignments, having a consistent policy and trying to level the playing field with all of these different applications that come to us is overall a benefit to the neighborhood. And we have tried to be reasonable and our policy consistently has been to recognize the reality in the neighborhood, which is that it's ever more residential. And that means rolling back the late hours. The problem for those who are newer to the board is that there is a nut of maybe a dozen establishments, I don't know exactly how many, that were given their late hours of operation many, many years ago, before the neighborhood changed, before the gentrification. And they are, many of them through no fault of their own, part of a very tough problem to solve. What this resolution does, and many other before it, is recognize the reality of a tough situation. It's counterintuitive, but if you get people, if you get establishment owners to agree to a stipulation, you get something which is better than if you have no stipulation at all. In this case, the thing that prevented the agreement was that the applicant basically told me in a personal conversation that he could not stay in business unless he could stay open till 4 p.m. and that all of his competitors were doing so. So the policy, since I've been on SLAT, now on 10 years, has been to make sure that any new applications, and that would include those that are coming to modify their method of application, are not going to make the situation worse, right? If we had agreed to 4 p.m., which we didn't, we were in the due diligence and in the discussion, we were very tough about that. But at the same time, we made it clear that if they would agree to the earlier hours, that we would give a conditional approval, which, we're being very tough-minded because I would say, as was discussed in an earlier context today, that the local residents are hostile to it. But a deny unless with a stipulation is something that moves the ball forward, at least according to our policy. So again, I do agree with Christopher that the RLA should be reviewed based on new conditions and data in the neighborhood. And at the appropriate time, CB5 should come out with a broad statement telling the city to do a lot of the things, a lot of the policy, mitigating policy steps that he mentioned. And what we've seen in CB5's efforts is that it's not quite enough for all of the residents and the establishments working individually to solve the problem. Anyway, I applaud the committee. It's a tough problem, and it's unfortunate that the establishment didn't agree to the stipulations.
Thank you, Todd. Other comments? Tom.
One comment I'll make, this is not a mixed use neighborhood. Where it is, it's commercial. And the only exception for the zoning it is 6C for residential is inclusionary housing. That means affordable housing. So if exception, like this area, it continues to happen where you have these buildings that got exceptions, don't have the inclusionary housing. Now, I understand we have a housing crisis, but this area and district was set for commercial. The only exception in the law that people got around, once again, was inclusionary housing. You had to have affordable housing in this area, this block, to go and live there. This is this area. If we keep knocking off places where commercial, residential, then the things that people like about the city are going to go away. We can have, and I'm not saying that it isn't, but there's a reason why the exception for this space is affordable housing. We have to look at places like this. Now, we talked earlier and we had this big thing about, another commercial spot that people were building housing on top of that's not C6, where they can go and build the mixed use space on top of a hotel. And people were saying, well, this isn't real housing. Now, this is a zone that we've zoned in our district for, it's commercial unless your residential has affordable housing. That's what it's zoned for. I mean, I get, you can say like, well, they can change the zoning laws, that's fine. But if you're a commercial space in this space, you went and you had a lease, you had a 10-year lease, the law hasn't changed. This is still a C6. These are the places people want to go. This is the things that draw people to the city. And I'm not saying the things that you're complaining about aren't valid and the neighbors have not valid for it, but this is the space for people to have bars open till 4 a.m. This is the space for live music. This is the space for that region. We keep getting into this where this little block here, which, and by the way, it's a carve out. It's a small space where there's C6, where there's been clubs. The neighborhood moved on top of it and they didn't build the affordable housing that they got the exceptions for. So you're changing the character of the neighborhood, and then we're bending the neighborhood. This is the beginning of NIMBYism. This is the beginning of the next thing they're going to say is they already didn't build the affordable housing they were supposed to. Now they're saying they want to get rid of the commercial residents. What's the next thing? I don't like. I understand, but this is the zone to do these. It's one thing if you move to a mixed use neighborhood, it's already set up for residential, and you want to have 1 to 2. But if they had gone to a place where this is what it's for. I don't understand. Then rezone it. And then you can rezone it and they can deal with that.
Thank you, Tom. You're on.
So I think in my mind, I think this resolution is not particularly complicated. I agree. And I'm glad to hear that we're looking at the RLA, and I think we should take a good look at it. But as you see, when you read the resolution, I think very simply what we have here is an operator that made a bunch of agreements to do a bunch of things 15 years ago, or whenever they signed their affidavit, and they didn't do those things. That's it. I don't know. This is about anything larger than that. This is an operator that violated its legal agreement, whether it should have signed it or not. That's not for us to say. And I don't know why, as a board, we would continue to support their applications when they didn't abide by what they had legally. I'm repeating what's in the resolution.
Go ahead.
There was no stipulation, and that is no.
Well, then that's not what the resolution says. Then we have a problem.
Then we do have a very big problem. Like I said, we vote for this resolution, but
Yeah.
according to
Wait, Christopher, you need a microphone. Christopher, you need a
according to the
microphone.
committee report itself, according to the committee, the testimony of the applicant, and according to the committee, there was no stipulation. There never has been a stipulation. This is a grandfathered in establishment with nothing legally binding it to CB5.
So can I ask Seth? I'm referring to line 714. And I do see the word apparent in there, but CB5 finds these violations demonstrate an apparent pattern of non-compliance with previously negotiated and agreed upon conditions.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one. We talked about this, I think. So basically there's two things. There's one, the SLA has operating conditions that that they've been working under. So that includes 3:30 a.m. Close times. And the applicant has said that there was not an option to say things like, I believe it was dancing at the premises. And so they didn't technically violate that. So I would be open to changing that that piece there. So we can remove that line. But what I would say is we had an interim agreement that they essentially just didn't sign. That's where we're at. So
Sure. Grab a microphone.
The law on dancing changed within the time frame we're talking about, right? The cabaret law changed in the time that we're talking about. So if you're saying they didn't agree to a legal agreement, they were agreeing to the law as it was, and now the law changed. They don't
Tom,
have
this
to
sounds like a
stick
comment,
with-
not a point of order.
But you're saying that's a legal agreement. Following the law at the time, yes, is a legal agreement in theory, but in practice, it's not, right? Like it's, you followed the law. It's,
I guess
Okay,
what
okay,
I'll
hold on.
oh,
Go ahead, Seth.
yeah, I'll just add one thing on this piece. So, theoretically, the way to address that then is to apply for a method of operation change prior to changing your method of operation. So while the law has changed, if you're permitting dancing, if the law has changed, you have to apply for a method of operation change to allow that. And so that's essentially what the line's referring to. But I'm not completely attached to it, so I'd be okay with removing it.
Catherine. Grab a microphone. Thank you.
Wanted to help clarify a few things. One is that when we hear these are applications for renewals and new applications that are confine us to respond to time, place, and manner. And the SLA grants a license that has an operating agreement, but these businesses are entities, as colleagues have said, we are just one part of their process. There are other places where they can be, issues can be raised, but I just want to clarify again what we are doing. And so when we say that the applicant has not adhered, it's when you're granted a license, you have an obligation to live out the operating agreement that you agreed to. And those violations matter to the community, to the neighbors that are there. And so we're not saying, and I also have to take a moment to just respond to, we're not responding to the inflammatory comments that people make that are off the side. And we have to get to the place where we have a zero tolerance, because what we're hearing is that these are people who come to committee public hearings and say things, and then they come to the board and they say the same things. The reason why you stop it, people will come and do it, but you have to address it, because so that it does not cloud what we are responding to. So we are often responding to what neighbors are saying within this is a 500-foot hearing. That's the other terminology that you want to keep in mind, that the neighbors are defined. Your good neighbor is the person who lives within the closest proximity. And so we are, in a community meeting, we engage operators and residents to strike balance. And there is absolutely, that's the good thing to do so that people aren't losing their minds, that you can come to some common ground around noise, around crowding. We're an innovative city. We should be able to solve some of this, not just. And so if we don't put it on the table, we can't do that. But I just wanted to say that we are responding to time, place, and manner. We should not be hearing inflammatory remarks and letting it go, because it clouds what we are doing, what comments we are taking seriously. And, residents have the right to go to SLA. They have the right. These people go to another hearing. It's a whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Yodim. Not yet.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. I just wanted to respond to Christopher's point about us not having a stipulation in place or an affidavit to which the applicant has agreed, which we don't, and we never had. That's been a problem. But this is an application for a method of operation change. And I think I have no problem voting for the resolution as it is, because we do not reference an affidavit. What we're recommending are what is in the resolve clause, which is closing hours of 1 a.m. During the week and 2 a.m. on the weekends. Personally, I was in favor of allowing them a little bit later closing time on the weekends, because I knew that it would be hardship for the operator as they've been running their business for years. But the committee clearly voted they wanted to stick to our RLA rules, which we're trying to, eventually move new applicants to comply with our earlier closing. So that's kind of the messy situation that we have.
Thank you. Zul.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're getting close to clarification here, but just on the point that the Iran raised on line 714 and then Seth withdrew it. So there was no previously negotiated agreement and conditions that were violated, but something you guys felt was violated, and this is why you came up with this. Could you just speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the language we can strike, because I could see how it would be, I could see how people would find issue with it. But essentially, we were arguing that they're essentially requesting a method of operation change to allow something that's already happening at the establishment. So technically, while the law changed over the course of their operation, really you should apply for the method of operation change prior to changing your method of operation. So it's the spirit of it, but I would be open to removing the language because it's not quite accurate.
Existing non-compliance.
For those online in
It-
719,
that
it also
same thing,
references
yeah.
existing non-compliance.
Existing non-compliance would be operating in a method that isn't in compliance with the method of operation that you have. Like if you don't have dancing in your current agreement with them, technically you're not allowed to. Yeah, yeah. I think that piece is fair to say.
Microphone.
So grab the microphone so people online can participate.
Point of order. Can
Yeah.
we just have an amendment if there's to be an amendment?
Sure. So somebody has to make that amendment, though. Are we?
Am I recognized? Am I just recognized?
What?
Am I recognized?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. I deeply oppose this resolution, but it is clear that there are some holes in it that we cannot possibly vote for. So I recommend, and I will move now, that we recommit this entire issue to the committee. Just send it back and let them look at it again at some other time. The applicant hasn't agreed to anything anyway. So I think it's best for us to just dismiss this back to the committee.
So before I ask for a second, I would just like to remind everyone that we will not get an opportunity to hear this again. This is going to SLA before our next meeting. So if we recommit it, our comment will not reach SLA in advance of their decision. Is there a second? Okay. Okay, so the motion is to recommit, which would send this resolution back to committee rather than any other action. Are there any questions? Questions to the motion to recommit? That's not a question. Okay. Are there any comments?
Yeah.
Grab a microphone.
We don't know. We're trying to get at what the non-compliance is, right? So we are understanding it's a method of operating, but is there a violation here?
So I just want to jump in here. This is referencing two mutually exclusive things. You have, when you apply to this state liquor authority to get a liquor license, there's a method of operation that you commit to with the SLA. It's a little more minimal. And then there's also the community board stipulation agreements, which are negotiated. They can be wide reaching, they can be not, just depends. We did not have a stipulation agreement with this operator, meaning an agreement between our board and the operator, but they do have an agreed upon method of operation with this SLA, as all operators do. So that, if anything, would be where the violations would be found.
Great. Thank you. Kevin. Thank you, Josh.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that we would not get an opportunity to comment on this again. That's the most important piece of information for this board. If our role is to inform what the SLA is going to be, how they're going to make decisions, this is the moment, the time, the day, the hour to do it. We may, Christopher, I believe you raised great questions, and we should be answering some of these.
Please address your comments to the chair.
Okay, well, but it's fine. But I think we should do it in a different way. We should just move. We should move with a vote on this particular question for the resolution that was presented by the committee, and then come back to some of the larger questions, because those are all very important. But if you miss it tonight, you just missed it, because the SLA is going to make a decision. So it doesn't matter what what you debate about.
Thank you, Kevin. Robert.
Very narrow comments, but it just strikes me as beside the point, the extent to which the applicant has been operating in contravention of some specific agreement we had with them. It seems to me that the committee heard testimony about or received information about how the establishment is operating and has come to conclusions about the manner in which the terms under which the committee would be comfortable with the applicant operating going forward, and that seems to be the end of the story. So I'm against the motion, and I think we should support the amendment.
Okay. Just a reminder, we're talking about the motion to recommit. That. Thank you for bringing it back, but I'll go to Todd.
Yeah, I just want to support what Kevin said. That's what I was going to say. The only additional thing I would say is I wrote this with Kevin and Eugene's input, and the idea, there was no stipulation that was violated, but there was still an operating agreement and rules, and the playing of music, the dancing, it was discussed in the due diligence that they did not adhere to those aspects of their license, right? And it was, they admitted it, and to be fair to them, they were just trying to stay in business and be competitive. So the license, the language that Seth mentioned.
The only other thing I like this like kind of separation between like prioritized and non-prioritized.
Can someone mute?
One area where I think it's.
Thank you.
Somebody, did I get cut off?
Make your. I think we got it. But make your.
Okay, my point is, if you didn't hear me, I support what Kevin said, and that there was testimony in the due diligence that they had played music and allowed dancing at a time when that wasn't allowed by statute in the city, and they did it to be competitive. They admitted as much, and their effort to change it was to come into compliance. That was the reason that we put in the language that Seth mentioned. It's not fatal to take it out if it'll help move us forward.
Thank you, Todd. Christopher.
Right. So I absolutely think that we should just deny this, of course, but I feel that it's a little bit better for us to just say, let the committee have another look and perhaps interact with the applicant. Now, sure, that means that it doesn't get to their particular SLA hearing at this particular time. But my point overall is that we should not be hearing this at all. We should never have gotten something like this. The way the RLA operates is fundamentally incorrect, and that a lot of the highly motivated ways that the RLA is used as a zoning tool, which is just wrong. So again, we shouldn't be wasting more of our energies on this kind of thing. But if we want to have like, relationships with the operators and balance the needs of the actual neighborhood, which should include the, the actual patrons of these places, then by all means, look at these things, try to negotiate something that they would actually sign. What we're offering now is something they will not sign. They've said they won't sign it. So there's no point in just saying like, oh, here are our stipulations that you'll never agree to, but we made our comment about some stipulations. Like, it makes sense to have stipulations that are signed to come to us, but stipulations that the applicant has no desire to agree to, like what is being stipulated? I'm telling you, it just says it's kind of nonsensical. So that layer is off. The RLA to me is very weak. And again, there are structural problems with the resolution. Like, they don't name the actual thing. They name an apparent pattern of noncompliance to kind of fudge the edges of like a real fact versus, complaints that the neighbors made. And again, in the committee, most of the people there had much better points than just cut the hours. Right? That is what the resolution ultimately winds up doing, recommending to no one that we're cutting that we should cut hours, what they don't agree with. And then, all the other solutions are kind of, just out the window. So if we miss our opportunity to give the SLA basically nothing, I don't think it's a big deal.
Thank you. Okay. Just a reminder, we're talking about just the motion to recommit. Zool. Is this, sorry, just hold, is that microphone working? I'm just reading the subtitles and they're not coming up.
So clearly, there's a need for ongoing discussion and debate on this issue and similar issues. But I think at this point, perhaps we can call the question.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the motion called to question. So let's take a vote. All those in favor of a motion to recommit, which would send this back to the committee, raise your hands. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, we have to, yeah, you're right. Okay, I apologize. All right, we have to vote on the motion to, we're voting on calling the question. All those in favor, raise your hands. All those opposed? Great. Okay, now, all those in favor of the motion to recommit, which would send this back to committee, raise your hands. All those opposed? Okay, motion to recommit fails. So now we are back to discussion on the resolution as written in your packet.
With the amendment.
There's been no amendment so far. We have not done anything. Tom,
Can I propose some amendments then?
you sure can.
So, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm hitting where.
Do you want us to come back to you?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm so
Sure.
sorry. I flipped the page.
Any other comments to the resolution? Zool, grab a microphone.
Yes, thank you, of course. So we can strike line 714 and 715. Is that how we would do it? Yaron, you have a thought on how to do this, as well as 719?
So you're offering a motion to amend this, which would be to remove lines 714 and 715 of the amendment. Is that correct?
I would like to ask Seth if that's where he wants to go with this.
It's a little unorthodox, but go ahead, Seth.
Is it? If it's a friendly amendment, I'd be open to that.
I don't think it's
For those
it's
two
not-
lines.
It's not a friendly amendment at this point. I think
Oh.
we've discussed it enough that I think we have to vote on it.
Okay, we have to vote on it. Otherwise, I would accept that. I don't think it really affects the resolution as is.
Is there a second to Zool's motion to amend? Okay. All right. So now we are discussing this amendment, which is again to remove line 714 and 715 from the resolution in your package.
Yes, please.
No, you cannot. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would just implore the board here to see the forest for the trees. I don't forget the expression, but like Josh gave us an explanation of what's going on there. This is not the first time this board has voted on this operator. The resolution contains ample information. Josh provided his explanation. Like, I don't know that we need to sit here and nitpick it. There's a long history with this operator. We've heard it before. I'm comfortable with Josh's explanation of leaving the language as it is. And, I think there are folks in the room who are going to vote no on this resolution, and that's fine. But I don't see what we're doing here. I don't know that we need to wordsmith.
No, you cannot call the question until enough people have had a chance to speak on the amendment. There has been a motion to amend. We must discuss the motion. Go ahead, Tom.
I can't disagree more with what you just said. The issue isn't like, we're not saying this is a bad actor. The problem is we're naming things that don't exist. And it's setting a precedent for good actors that we're making up rules that don't align with the law that can go and deny good actors. The problem isn't this particular thing. It's saying, hey, they had this mode of they agreed on this rule. They're in the zone where it doesn't, in C6s, you didn't have to go and change your method when the law changed. You're saying that there was an apparent rule that wasn't, like, you can't say there was an apparent agreement. There is no agreement. There's no signed agreement.
So,
yeah, I don't know. No, I'll pretend, Brad. What I'm just saying is we have to just, like, it's fine to do this, but if we're going to say this, we just have to stick to the facts. And there are things in here that we know are either fudged and we're saying the word fudge. And you can say, like, well, it doesn't matter. But then the next time we have a discussion about someone that's, let's say, a good actor, and we're having this discussion, and there's these new rules that that aren't in line with the law, that aren't in line with the district, aren't in line with that, that's going to cause an argument that will get us further into a problem. We need to define what's wrong with this thing within the facts. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, hey, this is a great actor, but
Okay.
this is the difference between a yes, no, and a vote, no vote, right?
Thank you. Any other comments to this amendment? Okay, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment, so the amendment is to remove lines 714 and 715, please raise your hands. All those opposed? That one's a little close for me. It seems like the opposed have it, but I think we have to do a roll call.
I'm sorry, this procedure drives me nuts. Like,
So it is frustrating, but I think you're about to offer an amendment to an amendment, which is a thing we cannot do.
actually, I was going to suggest we have no amendments and just stick to, this is imperfect.
So the way that we
but-
do that is by voting on this amendment and then deciding that we do not want to offer any others. So we have to finish the vote on this one.
Please. All right, here we go. Baker. He left. Okay. Borden. Okay. Let's see. Cow. Online. Is she there? Okay. Chu. Do we? Okay. Oh, boy. All right.
It is too late.
Yeah.
Keep going, Mike.
Okay, Chudnovsky. Gone. Okay. Dalal. Okay. Ellington. Okay. I think that's 2 right now. Frizz. Gosh, I'm not even. Greeley? We have that's a no? Okay. Okay, do we have Haas? Okay, Harris? Okay, Hutton. Libby? Okay, got it. All right, K-back. Abstain. Lev.
So yes, you are vote. If you vote yes, you want to remove those lines. If you vote no, you want to keep them as is.
Yeah, keep them as is.
So no.
No.
Okay, Samir? Yes. Mijatovic is a no. Nazaro?
Christopher.
Christopher?
No.
Okay. Andrea Eng. Yaron Nodi Victor. Okay. Patel, Kiran Patel? Nope. Thomas Ricardo. Will Rothschild. He left. Okay. David Shapiro.
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Todd Shapiro.
Guys, I can't hear a word of what's being saying. What is it that we're which line are we removing?
Todd, this is this is a vote on whether to amend the resolution to remove lines 714 and 715, which relate to the non-compliance, which we've been discussing. So if you vote yes, you are in favor of removing those lines, and if you vote no, you would like to keep the resolution as is.
I said, oh, okay. I said it was not, I vote yes.
Okay. David Sigmund. Okay. Stewart, Melissa Stewart. Kevin Thompson. Gone. Yodan. Robert Tookman. Yes. Okay, Murnal. Not here? Okay, Mandy Yang. No. And last but not least, Zul Zulkowitz. That's it. Against by right hand.
Okay, so the motion to amend fails. So now we are back to discussing the resolution as it is in your package. You're calling the question? Calling the question. I think, yeah, I think we're there.
Call the question.
Before you get a second, I think we're just going to go ahead and take the vote because nobody else has a comment. So they don't have to vote on that. So we're going to move on to the next item.
That's all for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Okay, last committee, everyone. Parks and Public Spaces. Libby, you're up.
Hi, I'm Libby. I'm the chair of the Parks, Public Spaces, Environment Committee. We had 3 resolutions from our committee. May I have them deemed read?
So deemed.
Thank you. So first, we had the proposal for the Union Square Pavilion. Some of you may remember, we saw this earlier this year. This was a review of the design. It is not a landmarked building, which is why it came to the Parks Committee, because it does exist in the park. It was for the review of how it would be interacting with the space as a public space and building. We recommended approval of the proposed design. We had lots of nice things to say about the signage that they recommitted to. This operator has been really wonderful to work with and has offered a lot of community programming and assets for the community with their proposal voluntarily at their last appearance before us. They also recommitted to the signage about bathrooms and signage about the seating area being public. There are some liquor license requirements that they will have to follow, but the signage is great. We also wanted to encourage more energy efficient design, glass, sustainable systems, looking at the roof in general. And overall, it was good. They do have some design quirks to work out because they're retrofitting an outdoor space into an indoor space. So it was nice to work with them on that. We passed this, we recommended approval at the committee, 11-0-0-0.
Thank you. Conflicts? Questions? Comments? Okay, next one.
All right. We saw 34th Street Partnership, their spring and summer programming. A lot of the programming is the same as it's been in prior years. There's dancing, which is totally okay during this programming, music, fitness, wellness, cultural programs, a lot of educational activities. And what we really enjoyed at the committee was more of a focus on family-oriented programming through April through October. There's going to be bicycle lessons, so you can learn how to ride your bike, because if you're in the city, it can be hard to do that. And with the street closure, it provides an opportunity to do that. We really strongly wanted to recommend additional youth programming and really praised 34th Street Partnership for coming to us with that. Great, wonderful idea. And they also wanted our ideas for more types of programming like that. We also talked a little bit about working with the SAPO office and coordinating with 34th Street Partnership a little bit more, just to get all 3 groups in a little bit more alignment, and recommitted to additional sort of between what the free programming is versus the commercial programming, though that does run through SAPO and not through 34th Street, they are part of that conversation. And it was a really productive conversation with the committee. We recommended approval of their programming 11000.
Great, thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Comments? David?
I'll be quick. So I'm going to vote against this because I don't agree with the leadership at 34th Street Partnership. Dan Biederman makes over $1 million a year, says he works full time and has a whole business that consults with government entities across the world on parks programming. While I appreciate the parks programming here, I do not appreciate him making $1 million a year, which is 2.5 times the mayor's salary. So until there's a change of leadership at 34th Street Partnership and Bryant Park, I will be voting no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Next one.
All right. Our final item was the Union Square Partnership annual programming. This is generally the same as what it's been in prior years. A little bit of it is scaled back in part because of the FIFA moratorium, but also just generally scaling back a little bit. We really appreciate their free programming in the park. Big takeaways were that the civic and cultural space of Union Square Partnership, we wanted to make sure that any programming that happens really preserves that through the spring and summer, and the place of assembly in the summer. And once again, continued discussion of the commercialization versus the free programming and sort of the difference between the two. And our one request was that any potential bid boundary expansion that they return to us for. This was not part of this conversation. It just came up along with it. So they are very happy to come back to us. We've got a great relationship with them. And we recommended approval of their summer programming 11000.
Great, thank you. Conflicts? Questions? Comments? Okay, so that is it for resolutions. Thank you, Libby. So now let's take 5 minutes to vote. We'll circle back at 9:21. All right, everyone, please take a seat. We're going to announce the votes. No, we're good.
Because we're not any sure because Charles left without voting.
Thank you. Sit down. Please take a seat. I'll go home.
All right, thank you all for your patience. Okay, we are going to go through the votes on the resolutions now, starting with April's minutes with 31 yes votes and 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, moving on to 871 7th Avenue with 21 yes votes, 8 no votes, 1 abstain, and 2 absents. That has been approved. Next, the 1633 Broadway Outdoor Cafe Pops, 29 yes votes, 1 no, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, on the support for the Rethread City Council capital funding, 28 yes votes, 2 no votes, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, Central Park Conservancy's park-wide entry rules signage, 30 yes votes, 0 no votes, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, 595 Madison's freight freight elevator entry door upgrade, 30 yes votes, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, regarding the Yale Club facade and rooftop mods, 30 yes votes, 0 no votes, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, One City Act, the CB5's support of the resolution, 28 yes votes, 2 no votes, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, on the NYC DOT Microhub pilot, 29 yes votes, 1 no vote, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, FIFA World Cup letter on the temporary alcohol permit mods, 29 yes votes, 1 no vote, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Moving along, Bernie and Herbs on-premise liquor license application, 30 yes votes, 1 abstain, 1 absent. That has been approved. Next, Taj / out of the ordinary method of operation change, 23 yes votes, 5 no votes, 2 abstains, and 2 absences. That has been approved. Next, the Union Square Pavilion renovation, glass enclosure and expansion proposal, 28 yes votes, 1 abstain, and 3 absents. That has been approved. Next, 34th Street Partnership for the spring summer public space programming, 27 yes votes, 1 no, 1 abstain, 3 absents. That has been approved. And finally, we're almost there. Union Square Partnership annual programming for Union Square Park, 28 yes votes, 1 abstain, and 3 absences. And that has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan. I now want to open up the floor for any new business. Any new business? I don't think that's quite weird. Great. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Next, we have the public session. Are there any speakers either in the room or online who'd like to speak?
Yeah.
Round of applause for our very patient officers and executives.
Thank you. We're not done yet, though, because is there anyone either online or in person who would like to speak? Just making sure I do it. Charles Nye.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I was wondering if the board could please improve the accessibility of some of the visual slides being described for people like me with non-vision who are legally blind. Time and time again in the committees, the graphical slides are not described at all by the presenters. And unfortunately, there's not a consistent, you know, a consistent way for the chair, consistency of the chairs to try to, you know, really enforce that, to really encourage that. And the website is still not fully accessible. So I'm hoping that, you know, the board can focus on improving its record on making the meetings fully, equally accessible to everyone so everyone can participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I adjourn this meeting.